Chapter 2795. Mu Yan didn't even take out the Tian Mo Qin. She directly stuffed an elixir into Ling Yuxing's mouth and asked, "What about the others? And how is eldest senior brother?" Ling Yuxing hung his head guiltily when he heard the words and was silent for a while. Mu Yan's heart sank. Did something happen to someone? Is it eldest senior brother? Eldest senior brother and Shao Qi were taken away. Mu Yan was startled. Taken away? Who took them away? What exactly happened after I left? After a pause, she shook her head. No, take me to see second senior brother, third senior brother and fourth senior sister first. They must have also been poisoned by the god execution witch, right? Ling Yuxing nodded again and again. Junior sister, come with me. Mu Yan grabbed Ling Yuxing and jumped onto the 7 absolute sword together. It's faster to fly there. Ling Yuxing had unparalleled speed and the almost heaven-defying absolute space field. He didn't need to use too much spiritual power to make his speed faster than the wind, rain, and even sound. The less spiritual power he used, the slower the god execution witch's poison would penetrate. That's why Ling Yuxing came out to explore the way. Otherwise, the 4 could only wait for death in the unclean abyss. However, Mu Yan was not stingy with her spiritual power as she drove the 7 absolute sword to rampage in the unclean abyss. Ling Yuxing could only stare dumbfounded. Sure enough, junior sister is junior sister. What was absolutely impossible in the eyes of ordinary people, to little junior sister, it was nothing out of the ordinary. In the blink of an eye, the 7 absolute sword landed at the place pointed by Ling Yuxing. Ling Yuma and Qin Jiu were contaminated by the god execution witch more than Ling Yuxing. Mu Yan didn't even have time to greet them. She directly took out the Tian Mo Qin and played the art of yellow. After half an hour, Ling Yuma and Qin Jiu's muddled eyes regained clarity. Ling Yuma rushed over and hugged Mu Yan. Junior sister, you're here. What the hell is this place? I've been chopping for half a day, but there's only black fog and corpses. I'll go crazy if I stay in this damn place for another 2 days. Mu Yan smiled and reported to Ling Yuma, then turned to Chu Moli, third senior brother, you don't seem to be deeply poisoned. As she spoke, she grabbed Chu Moli's wrist and felt his pulse. However, with this probe, Mu Yan slightly widened her eyes, revealing an astonished expression. Third senior brother, you haven't been tainted by the god-killing witch. Chu Moli slightly lowered his eyelids, a faint and gentle smile hung on his delicate and refined face. The corners of his lips curled into a smile, and the words that came out of his mouth were indistinct, making it hard to hear them clearly. Witches are of a lower rank than curses, so of course I won't, Mu Yan, third brother. Only then does Chu Moli raise his head and look at Mayan, junior sister, you said that you can use spiritual power as you wish in this unclean abyss? Mayan nods. Chu Moli curls his finger and gently taps the back of the wheelchair. In an extremely low voice, only the 2 of them can hear, he says, I am convinced that there is no spiritual power in this unclean abyss. Even the people of your Yanwu continent cultivate very, very little internal force. The only thing in this place is devil chi. Mu Yan's pupils suddenly shrank. What does third senior brother mean by this? Chu Moli smiles, but this time, it's not that kind of refined smile. Instead, his eyes are clear and bright, carrying a trace of indescribable warmth and softness. Junior sister, there's no need to be agitated, I'm just telling you the truth. But no matter what your background or identity is, you are only our Xiaoyao sex junior sister. Chapter 2796. Mayan stares blankly at Chu Moli. She used to think that this third senior brother was shrewd and unpredictable. His sense of belonging to the Xiaoyao sect was not as deep as the others. But at this moment, Mayan knows that it was not the case. third senior brother also treats them as his real family, the only people in the world that he wants to trust and protect. Because at this moment, he had never revealed such an expression and extension in front of outsiders. Never. A faint smile appeared on Mu Yan's face. She stood up and said, "Now, can you tell me what happened in the Snow Demon Forest? Where did Big Brother and Xiaoqi go?" Ling Yuma grits her teeth when she hears this question. She can't wait to take the Red Lotus soul-stealing blade and slash it 17 or 18 times. Damn it, it's all our fault for being careless. We were tricked. After you left, we all listened to you obediently and guarded the unconscious eldest senior brother. However, eldest senior brother's condition was getting worse and worse. As it turns out, after Mu Yan left, Yun Ruhan's condition worsened. Not only was she unconscious, but she was also bitten, and her body was starting to fester. When Luo Yu was brought back to the Xiaoyao sect by Shi Qing when she was very young, she lost all her memories. And Shi Qing was an old urchin. He was very good to Luo Yu, but he didn't know how to take care of her. Therefore, these tasks were taken over by big brother Yun Ruhan, who was already an adult. It can be said that Yun Ruhan raised Luo Yu single-handedly. Yun Ruhan was seriously injured and unconscious, so she was most afraid of Luo Yu. At this time, a group of people wearing Mu Le Pavilion's clothes break into the Snow Demon Forest. Mayan frowns. Mu Le Pavilion. Ling Yuxing nods. These people are holding something similar to a compass. They are searching in the Snow Demon Forest, but they are actually coming for us. The leader is an old woman with grizzled hair and beard. The compass in her hand is dark red, different from the others. After approaching the people of the Xiaoyao sect, the compass suddenly vibrates violently and makes a buzzing sound. The old woman's eyes widen. She looks at Yun Ruhan, who is lying on the ground, then suddenly pounces and shouts, "Young Master Ji Feng, Young Master Ji Feng, is it really you? Young Master Ji Feng, you are still alive. Young Master Ji Feng." Mu Yan revealed a stunned expression. Eldest senior brother is related to Mu Le Pavilion. Ling Yuma shook her head, absolutely not. I remember Master saying that eldest senior brother had followed him since he was young. He never mentioned Mu Le Pavilion. That whatever young Master Ji Feng, who knows where he popped out from. Ling Yuxing also said, even though Little Seven is ranked last, he has been in the Xiaoyao sect for a longer time than eldest brother. He can also testify that eldest brother has nothing to do with cleansing Joy Pavilion. Mu Yan has a puzzled look on her face as she motions for Ling Yuxing to continue. The old woman yelled at Yun Ruhan before ordering her subordinates to carry her away. Of course, the people of the Xiaoyao sect refused, so they started fighting with them. Mu Yan is even more puzzled. You lost. She was very clear about the strength of her fellow apprentices. Although Yun Ruhan was unconscious, the number of people who could defeat or even capture the unfettered five could be counted on one hand. When Ling Yuma heard this, she flew into a rage. These sons of bitches, they couldn't beat us, so they resorted to trickery. The Xiaoyao sect's fighting strength was already unmatched. Chapter 2797. Although the strength of the Cleansing Delight Pavilion's people could be considered strong, they were beaten to the point where they were unable to retaliate in just a few moves. But after the old woman fell to the ground, she took out a flute and started playing it. Ling Yuma and the rest had been with Mu Yan for a long time, so they weren't afraid of musical attacks at all. Who knew that the old woman wasn't playing the flute to attack them, but to activate the formation? Mu Yan was startled. She then slapped the rock under her, annoyed. She thought that her fellow disciples were strong, and they had all kinds of antidotes to protect themselves. But she forgot to consider that they were in the protective formation of the Horton tribe. She could even break the 10 ultimate formation of 1,000 caves, so she naturally wasn't afraid of any attacks from the formation. However, it was different for his fellow disciples. They knew nothing about formations. Within the Horton tribe, as long as the person controlling the formation launched an attack on them, how could they resist? But there was no point in blaming themselves now. Mu Yan didn't say anything, but listened to Ling Yuxing quietly. As soon as the formation was activated, we felt powerless. Also, all the spiritual plants in the forest seemed to have woken up and attacked us. In the end, we were tied up by some vines and couldn't move. Seeing that the people of the Xiaoyao sect were powerless, the old woman ordered them to take the unconscious Yun Ruhan away. She looked at Yun Ruhan with a gentle gaze. But when she looked at the people of the Xiaoyao sect, it was as if they had been dipped in poison. Young Master Ji Feng has been missing for so many years, he must have been kidnapped by these hateful outsiders. A cultivator of Mu Le Pavilion next to the old woman sneered, no wonder these outsiders could enter the boundary of the 10,000 Torrents formation without the music song token. So they forced young Master Ji Feng to send them in. There's no need to care about such audacious people, just send them to the unclean abyss. The old woman nodded and raised the flute to her lips again. Soon, a door of light appeared. Ling Yuma and the rest were thrown into the door of light one by one. When they opened their eyes again, they were already in the unclean abyss. Ling Yuxing frowned and said worriedly, I was the second last to be thrown into the door of light. Before I was teleported, I saw someone trying to catch Seven. But Seven suddenly went berserk. A red and a white soul pearl appeared on her back. Bai Zhe and Bifang Crane appeared at the same time, shocking everyone present. After that, I was sucked into the portal, and I don't know anything else. Mu Yan's heart thumped, and she cried out inwardly. Seven must have been too worried about senior brother, which was why she lost control and summoned Bai Zhe and Bai Fang. But she remembered that eldest senior brother had reminded her many times not to summon Bai Zhe in front of others. All 5 of them were now in the unclean abyss. Xiao Qi was alone guarding the unconscious eldest senior brother, not knowing what kind of situation he was in. Thinking of this, Mu Yan could no longer sit still. She suddenly stood up. Let's go. We'll leave the unclean abyss now. There was no one present who doubted Mayan's ability to take them out of the unclean abyss, which was said to be a place of no return. Including Wen Huanglang, who was still on tenterhooks. Mu Yan didn't leave immediately. Instead, she kept her promise and returned to the call first, bringing the villagers of Yuanwu village with her. Only then did she start to locate the life gate of the unclean abyss with the star curtain skill. Soon, a ray of light shot out from the Tian Mo Qin, illuminating a certain direction ahead. Chapter 2798. I thought I was dead when I entered the unclean abyss. I didn't expect that I would come out alive. Hee, we were lucky enough to run into the fairy maiden. The unclean abyss is said to be a one-way trip. If those bastards who threw us in knew that we came out alive, they would be furious. Idiot, is there a hole in your brain? If those people know that we are still alive, do you want to enter the unclean abyss again? Ahem. I was just saying it to show off. Following the guidance of the star curtain, the surrounding black mist became thinner and thinner. 2 hours later, Mu Yan and the others finally saw the edge of the unclean abyss. The so-called edge was actually the center of a mountain path. There was a distance of several hundred meters between them, and there were no formations or barriers. But the west side of the mountain path was filled with death qi, while the other side was filled with verdant hills, clear waters, and boundless blue sky. Stepping out of the black mist, everyone present, including Mu Yan, took a deep breath, feeling like they had just survived a disaster. The villagers of Yuanwu village, who had been treading carefully in the unclean abyss, were now chattering non-stop happily. Mu Yan suddenly let out a soft cry and looked up at the sky. As soon as they came out of the unclean abyss, she felt dozens of powerful auras, accompanied by treacherous energy waves, sweeping toward them. Bastard, where are you going? You stole the holy stone of Mulu Pavilion and killed the elder of our tribe. Do you think you can escape? The angry shouts were mixed with monstrous anger. These people's cultivation levels were obviously very high. Under the agitation of their emotions, even the air around them surged with spiritual power vortexes. Then came the roar of a beast. This time, it wasn't spiritual power that surged, but the black mist in the unclean abyss behind the mountain path. Mu Yan and the people of the Xiaoyao sect were stunned and looked at each other. This roar seemed a little familiar. Almost as soon as this thought appeared in their minds, a huge ferocious beast shrouded in a thick black aura was charging toward them at lightning speed. It was clearly heavily injured. As it flew, dark red blood dripped from the sky onto the ground. Even Mu Yan and the others, who are far below, can clearly hear his heavy breathing. Faintly, intermittent sounds could be heard. It's over, it's over. I'm dead this time. Master, come and save me. Otherwise, your dearest Qi Wen will. Qi Wen's mumbling suddenly stopped. Because its line of sight fell on the exit of the mountain path, and it suddenly froze. Whoa! Mei Yan Yan, why are you guys here? Qi Wen only paused for a moment. When she came back to her senses, her eyes immediately lit up, and tears streamed down her cheeks. As he cries, he dives towards Mayan. At the same time, its huge body shrank rapidly. When Huanglang and the villagers of Yuanwu village shouted nervously as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Lady Immortal, be careful. A man-eating beast is about to rush over. Great Immortal Goddess, get out of the way. However, their shouts soon came to an abrupt end. Because, in the blink of an eye, they saw the man-eating beast in their mouths shrink to the size of a baby. Then, it plunges into Mayan's arms and starts to cry without any care for its image. Whoa! Mei Yan Yan, you don't know how badly I was beaten by them. Chapter 2799. These bastards are not human. Didn't I just steal a piece of stone from them? Did they have to chase me for a day and a night? And that elder from that broken tribe, he obviously got sick on his own. How can you blame me? Whoa, Mei Yan Yan, my young heart has been greatly hurt. I urgently need your kisses and hugs to heal. Mu Yan doesn't know whether to laugh or cry. She picks up the little magical beast, who is rubbing against her chest and wants to take advantage of her, by the neck. Her divine sense explores its body, and she frowns. Your injuries are not light. Ling Yuma and the others nervously gather around. Junior sister, is Qi Wen all right? Qi Wen, why did you come to the northern continent by yourself? Does young martial uncle know you are here? Qi Wen flattens her mouth and hums. I went to the Shuemei forest to look for food, and I suddenly sensed the aura of something that Master wants. So I wanted to sneak in and help Master find it, to give him a surprise. Mu Yan glares at it. Are you sure you want to give young martial uncle a surprise, and not give him trouble? Although she was scolding it, her hand gently took out a pill and fed it to it. Ling Yuma curiously asks, what is the thing that young martial uncle wants? Qi Wen is about to speak. The pursuers had already arrived in the blink of an eye. Beast, let's see where you can go this time. Who are you people? These people's attention is originally on Qi Wen. But when he saw Mu Yan and the others, and the black mist that was still faintly visible on the mountain path behind them, his expression suddenly changed. You are blasphemers. Did you come from the uncleanst abyss? How can blasphemers come out of the uncleanst abyss? This is not the first time Mu Yan has heard the term blasphemer. She can't help but turn to look at Wen Huanglang. When Huanglang hurriedly explains, in our northern continent, whether it is the Horton tribe or the Ning family, they all believe in gods. For example, the Horton tribe in Mula Pavilion worship the most devout, Xian Mu goddess. Every year, during the big sacrifice, all believers are allowed to go to the altar to receive the blessings of the gods. This kind of blessing can strengthen the bodies of the northerners, and even improve their cultivation. Outside of the northern continent, cultivators who reach the gold core stage by the age of 25 are as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. But here in the northern continent, thanks to the blessings of the gods we offer sacrifices to every year, there are plenty of talented people who reach the peak of the gold core stage as soon as they reach adulthood. Mu Yan suddenly sees the light. She had already found its strange back at the clear night hole. There seemed to be too many golden core cultivators in the Horton tribe. For example, Yi Xiaomin's younger brother, Yi Xiaozong, was only in his early 20s, but was already at the peak of the golden core realm. But the strange thing was that although these people had golden core cultivation, they didn't seem to have the strength to match their golden core. Now Mu Yan knew that these people had received the God's blessing. But what kind of a blessing could improve everyone's cultivation in such a short period of time? Was there really no side effects to such an improvement? Mu Yan looks at Wen Huanglang, motioning for him to continue. Wen Huanglang says, during the sacrifice, those whose cultivation increases rapidly are called God's bearers, and they will be recruited by big families like Mu Le Pavilion or the Ning family. Chapter 2800. But in fact, there is still a small number of people who are the opposite of the gods bestow. During the sacrifice, not only did their cultivation and physical quality not improve, but they also suddenly fell into a coma with a high fever. When they woke up, they had become mindless monsters that only knew how to eat flesh and blood. The most frightening thing is that these people who were bitten by these monsters also began to go berserk. The first saintess of cleansing Le Pavilion told everyone that these people who went berserk had committed sins in their previous and current lives. They had blasphemed God, so they were punished and turned into monsters. If they were allowed to stay in the tribe, everyone in the tribe would be tainted with sin until they could never be reincarnated. Only by sending them to the unclean abyss, punishing them according to their sins and cleansing their sins with evil, can they truly obtain a new life and regain the protection of God. Therefore, these monsters who went berserk and were sent to the unclean abyss were called blasphemers. When Huanglang sighed, this is the origin of the blasphemers. But slowly, those who contracted incurable diseases and symptoms similar to berserk, those who offended the cleansing Le Pavilion and the great clans, and those who trespassed into the northern continent's barrier without permission, were also labeled as blasphemers. Those monsters who went berserk were sent to the unclean abyss while their minds were not clear. But there were also many people who were clearly very innocent, but were sent to the unclean abyss in a clear-minded state. In the end, they were either swallowed by the monsters or lost their minds, never to be freed. When Huanglang explained the origin of the blasphemers in a low voice, Mayan's group of 5, including Qi Wen, also listened with great interest. They completely disregarded the pursuers of the cleansing Le Pavilion. Especially Qi Wen, after listening, she shouted, "Bah, what blasphemers! Isn't purifying sins just a method they use to eliminate dissidents and consolidate their position? Impudent!" The people of the cleansing Le Pavilion couldn't stop, their angry roars almost breaking the sound barrier. Who are you people? Where did these brazen people come from, daring to slander the reputation of the cleansing Le Pavilion? Quickly hand over the beast who stole the holy stone. The leader was an old man with a lushing instrument in his hand. His cultivation had already reached the peak of astral projection. He raised his hand slightly, and the noise behind him immediately quietened down. The old man took a step forward and looked around. His gaze landed on Mu Yan and he nodded slightly. "I am the law enforcement elder of Cleansing Joy Pavilion, Chu Guangchuan." May I ask if Miss and her group have come out from the cleansing abyss? Mu Yan curls her lips and says indifferently, so what if I am? Chu Guangquan's pupils constricted. The expressions of the people from the cleansing joy pavilion behind him also changed. When he first saw these people appear on the mountain path, their bodies were stained with demonic aura. They had their suspicions. But this thought was quickly dispelled. Because according to their knowledge, since the beginning of the abyss of uncleanliness, no one had ever been able to leave it with a clear mind. Moreover, it would be fine if only 1 or 2 people came out. However, it just so happened that a large group of people had appeared. Among them, there were over 100 people with extremely low cultivation bases. How could such a person come out of the restless abyss alive? Chu Guangquan's expression changed several times, and his voice unconsciously became louder. How did you get out of the uncleansed abyss? Mu Yan, I'm sorry, it's a trade secret. Forgive me for not being able to tell you. Chu Guangquan didn't know what a trade secret meant. But he could see that Mu Yan didn't put him in her eyes at all. His face became extremely unsightly for a moment. Chapter 2801. The flame of jealousy from the Saintess. 1. Just at this moment, a melodious tune came from the horizon. Mu Yan raised her eyebrows and looked up. She could tell that this music was played by 5 instruments. They were the Chinese harp, jade flute, guzheng, yangqin, and pipe. Especially the sound of the Chinese harp, it was very familiar because she had tried playing it herself. It seemed that the 5 saintesses of Mula Pavilion had arrived. Just as she was thinking about this, an ethereal unpleasant sound of a harp suddenly joined the ensemble. Mu Yan's ears moved, and her expression became solemn. This was the sound of a harp. Moreover, the musician's cultivation and level were extremely high. Just a casual playing, a steady tune that was neither too fast nor too slow overshadowed the excitement of the 5 instruments playing together. This was an expert musician. Mu Yan couldn't help but look up in the direction of the sound. Hearing this ensemble, Chu Guangquan's eyes immediately brightened. He bent his left knee and knelt down. Welcome, Saintess. The other people of Mula Pavilion also knelt down respectfully and said loudly, Welcome, Saintess. As soon as the voice fell, 5 figures landed first. They were Yishuang, Yishui, Yifeng, Yiyu, and Yiyun. The moment she saw Mu Yan, Yishuang's fingers that were playing the Chinese harp became chaotic. A sharp and ear-piercing sound instantly broke the harmonious performance. Didn't you enter the unclean abyss? Why are you here? Even Yiyun and the other 3 stopped playing and looked at her in astonishment. Mu Yan said with a faint smile, Can't I come out after entering the unclean abyss? Why can't I be here? How is it possible to come out of the unclean abyss? Where did you come from, witch? What do you want to do in our Horton tribe? Bah, you're the witch. Ling Yuma stepped forward and cursed, Is the unclean abyss your Mula Pavilion's back garden? My junior sister can come and go as she pleases. It's not your business. You! Impudent! Yishuang and the others were furious. Right at this moment, a cold and pleasant voice came from the sky. Yishuang, why are you arguing outside? Have you forgotten the magnanimity of our cleansing joy pavilion? Elegant, graceful, noble, and dignified. She was always like a high and mighty fairy that mortals looked up to, worshipped, and revered. As soon as he finished speaking, a woman in a purple muslin dress slowly descended from the sky. A gentle breeze ruffled her long hair and clothes, revealing a woman's elegant and refined face. She had delicate eyebrows, creamy skin, a jade-like appearance, and was as beautiful as a peach. This was the most outstanding saintess of cleansing Le Pavilion in history, the master of the divine artifact, Ice and Snow Solitude, Bailon. The knees of the villagers of Yuanwu village trembled, and they almost knelt down. Beauty and grace were not the only things that Ma Jinglan possessed. More importantly, the Saintess of Cleansing Joy Pavilion was born with a sense of supremacy in the eyes of the northern continent's commoners. Even when Huang Lang's face turned pale, he lowered his head, not daring to look at the light of the approaching person. The people of Cleansing Joy Pavilion had already knelt down when they heard the sound of the zither. Now that Bai Lan had appeared, Ye Shuang and the others could no longer quarrel and quickly bowed to greet her. Thus, on the mountain path of the unclean abyss, only the 5 people of the Xiaoyao sect remained. They straightened their backs and looked at Bai Lan indifferently. Saintess, this is the woman who slandered the reputation of Cleansing Joy Pavilion in the Qingyi Hall. Ye Shuang raised her head and pointed at Mu Yan indignantly. Chapter 2802. The Holy Maiden's Fire of Jealousy. 2. This woman knows witchcraft and used all kinds of tricks to embarrass me in the pure night hall. I sent her into the unclean abyss, but she still came out alive. Ye Yun also said, this woman is really strange. Holy Maiden, please don't let her go so easily. Without needing Ye Shuang and Ye Yun's reminder, Ma Yinglan's gaze immediately fell on Mu Yan. Nothing else. Because the girl in front of her, who wore no makeup and whose clothes were stained with mud, was breathtakingly beautiful. Ma Yinglan herself was a top-notch beauty. When she saw other beauties, she naturally wanted to compare them. Before that, she had absolute confidence in her beauty. However, the moment she saw Mu Yan, her heart surged with jealousy and powerlessness. For the first time, Ma Yinglan didn't have absolute confidence in her appearance. Although her heart was in turmoil, Ma Yinglan's face was still calm. I didn't expect that the unparalleled unfettered 7 of the continent would come to visit my northern continent. Mula Pavilion didn't sweep the bed to welcome us, it was our negligence. Leng Yuma sneered, sweep the bed to welcome us. It's more like sweeping us into the unclean abyss. How dare you? Who allowed you to speak to the Holy Maiden like that? Chu Guangchuan roared and was about to blow the lushing in his hand. But Ma Yinglan gently waved her hand to stop him. Her expression didn't show the slightest bit of annoyance, and her eyes were still fixed on Mu Yan, especially Miss Qingqing Killer Monarch. I've been fascinated by your name for a long time. But Miss June's way of doing things isn't very honest. Mu Yan raised her brows. Oh, is that so? How am I not honest? Ma Yinglan said, you know that the northern continent doesn't like outsiders to disturb us, yet you sneaked in with unclear intentions. In the pure night hall, you caused trouble for no reason and trampled on Mula Pavilion's reputation to build your reputation as a genius doctor. Now, you even brought out a blasphemer from the unclean abyss. May I ask if Miss June wants to consign my Horton tribe to eternal damnation? Chu Guangchuan immediately shouted, it's not just that. Holy Maiden, they're even covering up for the bastards who stole the holy stones. You must recover our holy stones. Mei Lan was startled. She looked down and saw that Mu Yan was holding a small, strange spirit beast in her arms. Who else could it be but Qi Wen? Hearing Chu Guangchuan mention her, Qi Wen immediately yelled, beast, beast, beast. That's enough. What a bunch of ignorant idiots. What holy stone? Do you really think I'm as ignorant as you? This is clearly a nightmare stone from the immortal cultivation continent. It simply doesn't belong to your cleansing Le Pavilion. You just happened to pick it up. As it says that, it raises its head to look pitifully at Mayan, Mei Yen Yen, this nightmare stone is of great use to master, you mustn't let this group of misers take it away. Mu Yan laughed and patted its head. When it came to pestering endlessly and making false accusations, if this fellow claimed to be number 1, no one would dare claim to be number 2. However, Chi-Wen risked her life to snatch the Nightmare Stone, which meant that this thing was really important to little martial uncle. Mu Yen, Leng Yuma, and the rest looked at each other. Yes, for the sake of little martial uncle, they had no choice but to seize it by force and shamelessly for once. Ma Yinglan's face sank a little. When Leng Yuma was so rude before, she wasn't angry. When she realized that Mu Yan's appearance had surpassed hers, she didn't really get angry. But now, when she saw Chi-Wen and Mu Yan's intimate actions, an indescribable anger surged in her heart. Chapter 2803. The Flames of Jealousy from the Saintess. 3. Hong Lan frowned slightly and said, Miss June, are you really determined to go against my cleansing Le Pavilion? Mayan smiles in surprise. If I say that I don't want to, would the Saintess believe me? Hong Lan said, then give me the soul crystal in your arms. No. Chi-Wen grabs hold of Mayan's lapel, looking like she won't let go even if she dies. Mei Yan Yan, if you hand me over to them, I'm dead meat. Your name is Chi-Wen, right? Hong Lan suddenly softened her tone and said to Chi-Wen, don't you remember me? Chi-Wen was taken aback and turned around to look at her. Several months ago, in an ancient ruin deep in the mountains, it was you and your master who saved me. Do you still remember? Chi-Wen stared blankly for a long while before she said in a daze, ah, so it's you. In the process of Luo Yunxiao's search, he met too many women. Some of them had been rescued and followed him, some of them had tried every possible way to get information and waited for him, and some of them had followed him all the way from the town to the jungle. Chi-Wen had seen too many of them. How could she remember them all? It was only because the place where it met Nightmare Bailan was relatively remote, and Nightmare Bailan's appearance was top-notch that it barely had an impression of her. It was really too much. However, Ma Yinglan thought that Chi-Wen still remembered her, and a happy smile appeared on her face. She stretched out her hand, her voice becoming increasingly gentle as she said, Young Master Yun Xiao saved me before, I will not repay kindness with ingratitude. I promise that as long as you bring the holy stone back with me, no one in Cleansing Joy Pavilion will hurt you. I will send someone to send a letter to your master. At that time, we can discuss how to deal with this matter, okay? As soon as these words came out, not to mention Mu Yan and the others being shocked. Even the people of Cleansing Joy Pavilion looked at Yuan Sherlan in disbelief. Only Dong Ling, who had always been by Bailan's side, came to a realization when she heard that Chi-Wen was young Master Yun Zhao's spiritual beast. Mayan and the others looked at each other in dismay. So this was the debt of youngest martial uncle's love life. Oh no. Their young martial uncle didn't need to be in debt to attract a bunch of peach blossoms. So this was another young girl in love who had been charmed by their young martial uncle? Everyone's gaze fell on Chi-Wen. Military Orchid's eyes were filled with kindness, hope, and gentleness. With a wretched look on his face, Chi-Wen touches his lower body. His large, bell-like eyes look at Mu Yan, and then at Hong Lan. Just when everyone was getting impatient, it suddenly shook its head resolutely. No, no, I can't go back with you and walk right into your trap. Why? I said I wouldn't. Tisk. Chi-Wen rolled her eyes. You think I don't know? You must have taken a liking to my master, that's why you're so nice to me. You really want to marry my master and be my mistress, right? Unfortunately, my master is already taken. In his heart, there is only beauty and beauty, not you. What if I fall into your hands and you use me to threaten my master to marry you? I'm an unyielding and loyal spiritual beast. How can I let you use me to destroy Master and Mei Yanyan's lifelong happiness? Kala. Mu Yan reaches out to pinch Chi-Wen's neck, but she only manages to grab air. Chi-Wen is very good at judging the situation. As early as halfway through her words, she was already ready to go. As soon as Mu Yan makes her move, she immediately escapes into Ling Yuxing's arms with lightning speed. Xiaowu, look, Mei Yan also thinks that destroying Master's lifelong happiness is not good. Look, she's about to die from anger. Chapter 2804. The Holy Maiden's Fire of Jealousy. 4. Asking for votes. Ling Yuxing's mouth twitches. You're the one who's going to piss off little junior sister. Ling Yuma laughs. Qi Wen, where did you get the face to say that you're unyielding and loyal? Ha ha ha. Enough. Suddenly, Anlan's shout interrupts the laughter of the Xiao Yao sect people. Her face is as cold as frost as she stares at Mu Yan. I'm talking to you nicely, but you really think that you can play around with Mu Le Pavilion? Mu Yan looks at Anlan, inexplicably sympathizing with her. The position of Mu Le Pavilion's holy maiden must be high and aloof. In the end, Qi Wen revealed her daughter's secret in front of everyone, and was even spouted nonsense and despised by her. It's already not bad that Anlan can still maintain this kind of bearing. If it was her, she would definitely skin this lowly fellow alive. Mu Yan coughs lightly. Don't listen to Qi Wen's nonsense. I and Gongzi Yun Shao. Enough, I'm not interested in listening to you show off in front of me. Mu Yan is stunned. What am I showing off about? Anlan coldly says, I've heard about what the Xiaoyao 7 has done these days, and I admire you very much. Even if you came without permission and have impure motives, I don't want to make things difficult for you. But the premise of all this is that you don't harm Mu Le Pavilion. If you still insist on going your own way, then don't blame me for being impolite. This is the final ultimatum. Hand over Qi Wen and the Holy Stone, then send these blasphemers back to the unclean abyss, and I'll pretend that everything that happened today never happened. Qi Wen tightly clings to Ling Yuxing's neck, crying, Don't hand me over. Boo-hoo, I knew that women who hate because of love are the most terrible. You're the one who started all this. Ling Yuxing now understands why his little junior sister wants to strangle this guy. Compared to Qi Wen's affectation, when Huang Lang and the villagers of Yuanwu village are genuinely afraid. Their faces turn pale in an instant. Their trembling knees can no longer support them, and they fall to the ground. Goddess, we don't want to die. Mayan waves her hand. All right, stop howling. I've already saved you. If I let you die, wouldn't that be a waste of effort? Her tone was impatient, and there was even a hint of indifference in it. However, the people of Yuanwu village, who were scared out of their wits and filled with despair, seemed to have caught a duckweed. He looks at Mayan with complete trust and worship in his eyes. Even the instinctive reverence he had for the saintess of Mu Le Pavilion had disappeared. In their eyes, there was only the fairy maiden who had dragged them out of the quagmire of hell. Puff! Celestial maiden. Qi Wen burst out laughing. Can this name be any more unsophisticated? It's almost as good as those little girls calling Master Brother immortal. The corners of Mu Yan's lips curled up, and her eyes fell on Qi Wen. Qi Wen, have you ever heard Bai Xia say something? Looking at the girl's bright and beautiful smile, Qi Wen's body trembled inexplicably. What words? If you don't court death, you won't die. As soon as her voice fell, her slender white hand grabs the air, and Qi Wen is caught in it. Mei Yan, spare my life. I just wanted to say that the fairy maiden is too vulgar, she's not worthy of you. Didn't that group of people from Hellflame Valley say that you have the title of the Enchantress of Medicine? Yes, the Enchantress of Cities, such a noble and elegant name, only it is worthy of you, Mei Yan. Good night. Chapter 2805. Everyone in Yuanwu village stares blankly, then they repeat it, alluring Enchantress, Enchantress. Indeed, it sounds much better than the tacky immortal. Thinking so, everyone in Yuanwu village immediately kowtows again. Thank you, Enchantress, for saving our lives. Mu Yan facepalms. She's not interested in arguing with Qi Wen, so she just throws it aside. Then she looks at Honglan. If I say that I didn't want to make things difficult for Mu Le Pavilion, I'm sure the saintess wouldn't believe it. But I'm sorry, I can't agree to either of your conditions. Honglan calmly nods. I expected it. Then, we'll rely on our own abilities. As soon as her voice falls, she quickly retreats, and at the same time, she shouts, punish the evil and collect the soul. Yi Yun and the other four move extremely fast. Almost as soon as Honglan gives the order, they're already flying in 5 different directions. There are cliffs on both sides of the mountain path. At this time, Yi Shuang, Yi Shui, Yi Feng, and Yi Yu have 1 foot on the cliff. Their bodies lean forward, and the instruments in their hands suddenly start playing. Yi Yun has already reached the entrance of the mountain path. The pipa in her hand plays, producing a sad and lingering melody. At the same time, the 5 melodious harmonies resound. Chu Guangchuan and his men also soar into the sky, blocking the land and the sky in all directions. Ling Yuma pulls out the red lotus soul-stealing knife, eager to try. Previously in the snow demon forest, they clearly had enough fighting power, but they were knocked down by the array. Now that they have their little junior sister, they're not afraid of any array. They can finally fight to their heart's content. The people of the Xiaoyao sect are full of fighting spirit, ready to go. Only Mu Yan slightly frowns, her fingers lightly playing in the void, calculating the position of Yi Yun, Chu Guangchuan, and the others, and the song they're playing. A faint bad premonition floats in her heart. This array that's about to be completed is, the next moment, they hear the ethereal sound of a harp. It's the only missing link in the array. Oh no! Mu Yan suddenly realizes and quickly summons the Tian Mo Qin. However, she's still 1 step too late. Countless rays of light shoot out from the instruments played by the people of Mu Le Pavilion, forming a net of light in the sky. Along with the sound of the sea harp. This deathly still net of light seemed to be endowed with life as it suddenly fell downwards. Ah dash! Help! The net of light did not touch the 5 people of the Xiaoyao sect, who were ready to attack, but it trapped the villagers of Yuanwu village and Wenhuanglang. Ling Yuma suddenly turned around, her face full of astonishment and anger. Damn it, you guys actually cheated. She furiously raised the red lotus soul-stealing saber, and was about to chop it down. Without changing her expression, she plucked the strings of the solitary snow and said coldly, fellow Taoists of the Xiaoyao sect, you'd better not act rashly. Otherwise, the myriad evil-slaying net will shred the bodies and souls of these blasphemers into pieces. The moment, icy snow's solitude, rang. The net of light that bound the villagers of Yuanwu village immediately tightened. In a split second, 2 villagers let out pained howls. One of them was a little girl who was only about 10 years old. Her delicate and pretty face just happened to be attached to the net, and a few cuts appeared in a split second. The little girl cried out in fear and pain, "Fairy sister, save me. I don't want to die, I don't want to become ugly." When Huanglang's body also suffered a few cuts. Chapter 2806. But when Huanglang didn't care about the pain in his body or the fear of death. He looked at Yuanlan angrily. As the saintess of Mu Le Pavilion, you used the lives of the old, weak, women, and children of the Horton tribe to threaten foreign cultivators. What right do you have to be respected by us? What right do you have to control our lives? Yuanlan looked at the little girl who was crying to Mu Yan for help. She was stunned, and a trace of pity flashed across her eyes. But it was soon replaced by a stone-hearted determination. She said coldly, blasphemers are sinful souls abandoned by God. Only when they die can the whole tribe not be implicated. I did nothing wrong. But they are not the real blasphemers. When Huanglang roared in anger. They were framed and sent to the temple for no reason. And as you can see, they are fine now. What right do you have to decide their life and death? Just because you are the high and mighty saintess. Before Yuan Lan could answer, Yu Shuang had already spat and said arrogantly, so what if they were framed? As long as they are sent to the unclean abyss for more than a day, the God-Slayer witch will invade their souls and bones, and they will never be able to get rid of it. They look like normal people now, but who can guarantee that the God-Slayer witch in their bodies won't act up one day? Can you bear the responsibility if the whole tribe is implicated? So we deserve to die innocently. The villagers of Yuanwu village couldn't bear it anymore and burst into tears. We used to believe in the fairy Mulu goddess. No matter how little we got every year, we would go to the Wangyin Bazaar to offer tributes to the saintess and Mulu pavilion and pray devoutly. But what did we get in exchange? Were they abandoned like trash over and over again? Yu Shuang smiled disdainfully. Who can you blame? You can only blame yourselves for being unlucky and becoming blasphemers. Since you are despised by God, don't you deserve to end up like this? The angry roars of the villagers turned into desperate whimpers. Mu Yan's face slowly darkened. She looked at Yuan Lan and said calmly, I have a way to completely get rid of the God-Slayer witch in their bodies. Ha! Yu Shuang laughed. Are you kidding? Get rid of the God-killing witch in their bodies. How could you tell such a lie? Yi Yun said with a solemn expression, Saintess, we don't have to be polite with them. If the holy stone has been in their hands for too long, I'm afraid there will be changes if we delay. Hong Lan nodded slightly. He put away all the pity in his eyes and gently touched the snow solitude with his finger. The 10,000 evil-slaying net tightened again. This time, the villagers of Yuanwu village were already wailing in pain. Some of them even had their tongues hanging out of their mouths. Their eyes were rolling back and they were panting painfully as if they would stop breathing at any time. Hong Lan said, We'll talk about whether you can get rid of the ice and snow solitude later. Now, please return the holy stone of Mulu Pavilion. Otherwise, you won't even have the chance to convince me to let you treat them. I'll count to 3. The faces of Mu Yan and the others darkened. However, he still quickly turned his gaze towards Qi Wen. Compared to some nightmare stone, human lives were obviously more important. If little Marshal Uncle wanted the nightmare stone, they would think of a way to get it later. Qi Wen whimpered. She was extremely unwilling and extremely depressed. Chapter 2807. But under Mayan's gaze, it doesn't dare to refuse. It can only aggrievedly take out a reddish-brown stone from the storage ring on its claw. The moment they see this stone, everyone from Mulu Pavilion holds their breath. It's their sacred stone. Mayan also suddenly widens her eyes, her heart pounding. She doesn't know what this stone is. But inexplicably, there's a surge of extreme uneasiness in her heart. It's as if that stone contains something that makes her feel fear from the bottom of her bones. Jun Mayan, what is that? She hears Qi Huang's frantic voice. Mayan composes herself and replies with her divine sense, Do you know this? I haven't seen it before, but I think I've seen it before. I don't know. Qi Huang's voice is sharp and messy. Mayan looks into the space and sees that his face is deathly pale, his expression panicked. Thick black gas begins to gush out from his body. The entire space of the Tian Mo Qin is violently shaken by this surging black gas, and countless tiny vortexes appear. Little Phoenix and Little Chick are frightened. They huddle together and curl up in the corner, making pitiful whimpering sounds. Chi Huang. Mayan is startled and quickly shouts, Chi Huang, calm down, do you want to tear down my Tian Mo Chin space? Hearing Mayan's voice, the black gas around Chi Huang slowly converges. The space of the Tian Mo Chin also gradually returns to normal. Mayan breathes a sigh of relief and quickly pacifies, isn't it just a broken stone? Is there a need to be this scared? You even said that you're an ancient artifact spirit. Who said that Ben Zun was scared? Chi Huang stomps his feet in anger, Jun Mayan, don't slander me, when was Ben Zun afraid? Isn't it just a broken stone? As the two are talking, the situation outside suddenly changes. Chiwen has just taken out Mula Pavilion's sacred stone, and is about to reluctantly hand it over to Yuan Lan. Who knows, it still hasn't moved. The invisible barrier that originally separated the unclean abyss from the outside suddenly shakes violently. The thick black fog in the unclean abyss seems to have gone mad, madly pounding in the direction of the sacred stone. Not good. How could this be? What happened? Crack. The barrier couldn't hold on any longer and shattered. The thick black mist in the unclean abyss was no longer obstructed and rushed out of the mountain path. The first to be devoured were the villagers of Yuanwu village. No. No. Don't come over, I don't want to become a monster again. Save me. Goddess immortal, save me. Woo woo woo, clang. The sound of the zither rang out, as if it was the sound of a powerful army. In the next moment, a figure clad in snow-white clothes appeared in front of all the villagers of Yuanwu village. The girl's figure was so slender and frail, as if a gust of wind could blow her away. But at this moment it was so indestructible. It was as if one person alone could shoulder all the dangers and the lives of each and every one of them. Divine hands weaving the heavens, activated. Star curtain, activated. Cloud sky net, activated. The third layer of star domain, activated. The rousing sound of the zither blends all of Mayan's spiritual power and converges into a wall of sound. It replaces the original barrier and blocks the black fog. But it was not enough. The black mist and the untainted abyss was too powerful. The array that Mayan hastily created simply couldn't withstand it. Her face turns pale inch by inch, and even her lips lose their last trace of blood. Chapter 2808. However, it was still unable to stop the black fog that was surging over. Mu Yan's eyes turned cold. The 7 absolute swords flew out of her body and turned into 7 colorful swords. They directly formed a sword net in front of the black fog. However, the 7 absolute sword was her natal sword. When the black fog attacked the 7 absolute sword, it was also attacking her origin and spirit. Mu Yan spits out a mouthful of blood. However, he did not take a single step back. When the villagers of Yuanwu village saw this, tears streamed down their faces. Miss June. When Huang Lang screamed, "Hurry up and leave, don't worry about us." That's right, fairy maiden. It doesn't matter if Xiao AI dies. Xiao AI's life isn't worth your life. Damn it. Ling Yuma cursed, what are we still standing there for? Hurry up and help little junior sister. As he spoke, he lifted the red lotus soul-snatching saber and rushed forward. Ling Yuxing's speed is even faster than her. In the blink of an eye, he has already arrived at Mayan's side. Qin Jiu and Chu Moli were next. A trace of hesitation flashed through Chu Moli's eyes. However, in the end, he still took out a silver longbow and slowly pulled the strings of the zither towards the black mist. Seeing Mayan's group of 5 recklessly blocking the black mist from the untainted abyss, Honglan was in a daze, unable to come back to his senses. She subconsciously wanted to strum the harp and rush forward, but was held back by Ye Yun and Chu Guangchuan. Saintess, be careful. The unclean abyss is rioting. It's too dangerous here. We must leave immediately with the Saint Stone. But if the god-slaying shamans from the pure abyss don't come out, the entire Horton tribe will be in danger. The Cleansing Delight Pavilion was supposed to be the guardian of the northern continent. But now, a few foreign cultivators were risking their lives for the safety of the Horton tribe, while they fled. How could this be justified? Chu Guangchuan's eyes were very calm. He said lightly, "This is not the first time the unclean abyss is rioting, but as long as the holy stone is enshrined in the God-praying tower, the rioting will not last long. At most, the surrounding villages will suffer." Ye Yun added, "Compared to the lives of a few villagers, your safety and the holy stone are more important." "That's right, Saintess, let's go back quickly. We must prioritize cleansing Le Pavilion." Hearing that Cleansing Joy Pavilion had to be prioritized. Only then did Blue Orchid slowly calm down. She clenched her fists and told herself over and over again, yes, Mula Pavilion is the most important. As long as the Cleansing Delight Pavilion remained strong, it could protect the entire tribe and ensure peace and tranquility in the northern continent. The sacrifice of a few villages and a few hundred civilians was worth it. As she thought of this, her expression turned cold. He reached out to grab the Saint Stone on Qi Wen's claw. In the entire Cleansing Joy Pavilion, she was the only one who did not suffer too much of a backlash when she touched the Saint Stone with her bare hands. Qi Wen came back to her senses and realized that the people of the Carefree sect were in danger, and this danger was caused by the Nightmare Stone. It let out a loud cry and was about to retrieve the Nightmare Stone. "Bastard, you want to go back on your word? If you don't hand over the Saint Stones, I'll take your dog life." Chu Guangchuan furiously raised his lushing and smashed it towards Qi Wen. Qi Wen was startled, and she hurriedly enlarged her body in an attempt to dodge. Unexpectedly, Chu Guangchuan's lushing accidentally smashed onto the boulder. The Nightmare Stone flew towards the unclean abyss. In a split second, the black mist that was originally suppressed by Mayan and the others was like a water surface that had a boulder thrown into it, turning into raging waves. Mayan's complexion changed greatly. She raised her hand and the sound of the zither rang out, pushing Leng Yuma and the others away. Chapter 2809. It's already too late for Mayan to dodge, so she simply clenches her teeth and no longer retreats. Isn't it just a god-punishing shaman? Do you think she's afraid? Junior sister. However, the expected impact of the rancid black fog did not come. Instead, it was replaced by countless sharp swords that pierced through the clouds like a scorching sun. It's just that these swords are so sharp, but they all brushed past Mayan's figure, not even scratching her clothes. Mayan stares blankly. This sword intent, this aura, it's so familiar. Young martial uncle. The swords dissipate, and the young man's figure slowly descends from the sky, guarding in front of Mayan. In a split second, there's a deathly silence. Today, Luo Yunxiao is wearing a snow-white robe, with ice blue embroidered edges. Her long hair, like a waterfall, is casually tied up with a white ribbon. The black silk satin flutters in the wind, lacking the gentle, jade-like gentlemanly style, but with an even more bewitching and elegant appearance. Clang! The harp in Yishuang's hand isn't steady, and directly smashes to the ground. There's actually such a graceful and peerless man in this world. Ye Yun's eyes turn to Honglan. She sees that the solitary snow and ice in Honglan's hand has disappeared, and her eyes are fixed on Luo Yunxiao, as if she has lost her soul. Solitary snow and ice is linked to Honglan's divine soul. Once her mind becomes unstable, she will return to Honglan's Qinkuan sleeve. Ye Yun looks at Luo Yunxiao again. She sees that he's actually holding Mu Le Pavilion's holy stone. If an ordinary person touched the holy stone with their bare hands, their mind would become unstable and they would be in unbearable pain. But Luo Yunxiao seems to be fine. And the holy stone, which would shake violently in other people's hands amid bursts of black gas, seems to have met its nemesis. In Luo Yunxiao's hand, it's as quiet as a real lifeless stone. Even the black fog that gushes out from the unclean abyss. After the holy stone calms down, it scrambles to return to the barrier. Ye Yun is instantly excited. Young Master Yunxiao can actually control the holy stone like the saintess. No, how can he only control the holy stone? He can even stop the riot of the unclean abyss. Such an outstanding man, who is also the saintess's favorite, if he can marry into Mu Le Pavilion. Wouldn't that be the best of both worlds? Given the holy lady's looks and the status of the cleansing joy pavilion, young Master Yunxiao must have wished for nothing more than to be able to gain the holy lady's favor. Coincidentally, at this moment, Honglan could not help but take a few steps forward and called out softly, "Young Master Yunxiao." Ye Yun looked at her holy daughter's eyes that were filled with affection and her snow-white cheeks were slightly red. She felt a surge of excitement in her heart. Blue Billows was simply too beautiful. She knew that no man would be able to refuse. After taking control of the Nightmare Stone, Luo Yunxiao turns to look at Mayan. "How are your injuries?" Mayan revolves her spiritual power, wiping the blood from the corner of her mouth. "It's nothing." Fortunately, Junior Martial Uncle came in time. Although she was not afraid of the God Execution Shaman. However, after her spiritual power was exhausted, she could not stop the black mist gushing out of the unclean abyss. If that happened, the villagers of Yuanwu village and the surrounding northern continent cultivators would suffer. Nonsense. Luo Yunxiao suddenly raised her voice. Her usually indifferent and cold face shows a rare uncontrollable anger, again and again. "Do you not care about your own safety?" Mayan stares blankly at Luo Yunxiao's angry face, somewhat unable to come back to her senses. This is the first time she has seen her junior martial uncle so angry at her. For a moment, she is somewhat dumbfounded. Chapter 28:10. Luo Yunxiao, speak. Oh, I know I was wrong. Mayan cautiously replied, "Young martial uncle, don't be angry." Luo Yunxiao's hands tightly clenched and loosened in his sleeves. After repeating this several times, he was able to suppress the anger and fear in his heart. The trembling of his body, and the thoughts that he had been carefully concealing, did not completely leak out. "Young Master Yunxiao." An ethereal and sweet voice broke the oppressive atmosphere of this demon person. Honglan half raised his head, his eyes as clear as water, as if reflecting bits of starlight as he looked at Luo Yunxiao. "Do you still remember me? In the ancient ruins of the Western continent, it was you who saved my life. If you hadn't helped me at that time, I might not have been able to return to Mu Le Pavilion alive." The interruption of this voice forced Luo Yunxiao to restrain his emotions. Mayan Kuang breathed a sigh of relief, inwardly praising the holy maiden of Mu Le Pavilion for saving him from the fire and water. Young martial uncle's expression just now was too scary. She felt that in the next moment, a terrible punishment would be spat out from those thin lips. Even if she didn't die, she would still lose a layer of skin. Luo Yunxiao forcibly suppressed the depression in his heart, and when he looked at Honglan, he had already recovered his usual indifference. "It's no trouble at all. For you, it's no trouble at all, but for me, it's a kindness that I will remember for a lifetime." Honglan bit his lower lip, his gaze falling on the nightmare stone in his hand. "Young Master Yunxiao, I don't know why you need the holy stone. If this holy stone was mine, I would not hesitate to offer it to you if you wanted it. However, the holy stone belongs to Mulu Pavilion, and it is very important to us. I am very sorry, but I have to ask you to return my clan's holy stone. Luo Yunxiao stared blankly, looking down at the nightmare stone in his hand. He only hesitated for a moment, then reached out and handed it back to Honglan. Master, don't I stole this with great difficulty. Qi Wen's clamoring abruptly stopped under Luo Yunxiao's cold gaze. It shrunk its neck and no longer dared to clamor, only muttering a few words unwillingly. Honglan looked down. Under the sunlight, a slender jade-like hand with well-proportioned joints brought the reddish-brown nightmare stone to her. Honglan's heart was thumping hard and her face was red. She couldn't summon the courage to reach out and take it for a long time. Young Master Yunxiao, it's not impossible if you really want this saint stone. Yi Yun's smiling voice suddenly interrupted, the holy stone is very precious to our cleansing joy pavilion. Even the elders and I don't have the qualifications to touch it. However, the saintess is different. The saint stones are usually kept by her. In this world, other than the saintess, who else can touch and use the holy stone at will is the husband of the saintess. Yi Yun raised her head and looked at Luo Yunxiao's handsome face. The more she looked at him, the more satisfied she felt. I wonder if young Master Yunxiao has the intention to marry into my cleansing joy pavilion and become the sacred lady's husband. Honglan's face turned red, and she hurriedly cried out, Yi Yun, don't talk nonsense. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Mayan's mouth gapes wide open, unable to close it for a long time. Just now, he was scared out of his wits by little martial uncle's anger, causing his spiritual sense to go haywire. Only now can he see that the saintess of cleansing joy pavilion likes little martial uncle. Ling Yuma and the others stared blankly for a moment, then suddenly jumped up from the ground. Marry into cleansing joy pavilion. What kind of joke is this? Why should our little martial uncle marry into your cleansing joy pavilion? Chapter 28:11. Yeah. Who do you think you are? So what if she's the saintess? Our junior martial uncle is the #1 swordsman in the cultivation world and the most handsome man in the world. If your holy daughter wants to marry into our Xiaoyao school, we'll have to see if she's good enough. Mu Yan nodded repeatedly. She approached Luo Yunxiao and said, Junior martial uncle, you mustn't take things too hard and marry into our family. The tradition of the Xiaoyao sect is to marry into the family. Luo Yunxiao raised her hand and knocked her on the head. What nonsense are you talking about? She said angrily. His tone was unkind, but there was a tenderness in his eyes that could not be dispelled. Others might not be able to tell. However, Yuan Sherlan, who had been watching Luo Yunxiao, saw it clearly. The joy he felt when he found out that Luo Yunxiao is Mayan's little martial uncle, all of a sudden, it completely dissipates. Her heart felt as if it had been pricked by a needle, and it was tingling faintly. Luo Yunxiao's hand continued to move forward, without any intention of withdrawing. He didn't want to accept Yi Yun's proposal at all. In other words, he didn't even think about marrying her. Just like when they were in the ruins, he had never taken her seriously. Tears welled up in Yuan Sherlan's eyes. This was the first time she liked a man. I thought the taste of love is sweet. But it turned out to be so bitter and sorrowful. Meilon took a deep breath, forcing back the tears in her eyes, and reached out to take the nightmare stone from Luo Yunxiao's hand. Yi Yun's expression was extremely gloomy. His cheeks were burning as if someone had slapped him hard. She gritted her teeth and said, Young Master Yunxiao, what do you mean? Could it be that you think that the saintess of my cleansing Le Pavilion is not worthy of you? Luo Yunxiao replied indifferently, I'm grateful for your kindness, but I don't have such intentions. You Ye Yun, enough. Jean Lon shouted hoarsely, gripping the nightmare stone tightly. Let's go. Wait, holy maiden. Chu Guangchuan suddenly said, even if the holy stone has been returned, these blasphemers have not been dealt with. This is a huge threat to the entire northern continent. Hong Lan's footsteps paused and she turned around. The net of light on the villagers of Yuanwu village disappeared after the music stopped. However, the coldness and ruthlessness of the people of Cleansing Joy Pavilion and Ban Lan had left a deep impression on them. At this time, seeing that Hong Lan is looking over, these villagers immediately hide behind Mu Yan in panic. Chu Guangchuan stepped forward, saying coldly, the saintess of the blasphemers must be eliminated. Ye Yun had just witnessed her holy maiden being humiliated and rejected, so she was fuming with rage. Hearing this, he immediately took out his pipa and said coldly, people of the Xiaoyao sect, are you going to continue to protect these blasphemers and cause trouble for the northern continent? Mu Yan feels that a small hand is fiercely gripping the hem of her clothes. His tiny body pressed against hers, trembling incessantly. Should we die? The little girl didn't know what a blasphemer was, but she did know that in the northern continent, it was an existence that everyone wanted to kill. Mu Yan reaches out to stroke her hair, softly saying, of course not, there has never been a blasphemer in this world. Mu Xiaoyao's eyes brightened. The little girl's eyes lit up for a moment before dimming again. But the people in the tribe say that the saintess is supreme and is the messenger of God. We have always believed in the saintess and revered her. My greatest wish is to become a maid in the saintess temple. Chapter 28:12. But now, the holy maiden says that the people in our village are blasphemers and should die. We clearly didn't do anything. Mu Yan looks up at Jean Lan, her eyes heavy. Jean Lan feels as if these eyes can see through her soul, leaving her with nowhere to hide. She panics and suddenly raises her voice. Do you think that you are very kind, protecting innocent villagers? But have you ever thought that if you let these people live, the Horton tribe, and even the entire northern continent will die? You don't know what a real blasphemer is, yet you insist on saving them. In the end, the entire northern continent is in a desperate situation because of these blasphemers, but you just walk away. Jun Mu Yan, aren't you being hypocritical? Mu Yan frowns and is about to speak. Suddenly, a clear and deep male voice comes from beside her. Then do you know where the blasphemers of the northern continent come from? When you accuse others, have you ever thought about the source of the blasphemer's sin? Jean Lan stares blankly, looking at Luo Yunxiao. What do you mean by this? Luo Yunxiao raises his hand in the air. The nightmare stone that Jean Lan had put away in her sleeve unexpectedly flies out on its own and into Luo Yunxiao's hand. Holy stone. Luo Yunxiao, what are you doing? Quickly return the holy stone to us. Luo Yunxiao gently twirls the holy stone with her fingers, revealing a mocking smile. Do you know where this stone came from? Jean Lan suppresses the trembling in her voice, raises her head, and says in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, I know, Chiwen said that this stone fell from the Xuxian continent. But my Mula pavilion has owned it for hundreds of years. Everyone in the Horton tribe worships it, offers sacrifices to it, and obtains energy from it. We have already regarded it as our own holy stone. Do you want to take it away just because you say that it came from the Xuxian continent and doesn't belong to us? Ling Yuma sneers, if my young martial uncle wanted to take it away, he wouldn't have returned it to you. Gauging the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Jean Lan's face turns green and white, but she grits her teeth and stubbornly looks at Luo Yunxiao. Luo Yunxiao lightly says, I didn't want to say these things, but what, he didn't say. But Yuan Sherlan understood. Because she called out Mayan's hypocrisy, because she fiercely humiliated Mayan with her words, she angered this man. Hong Lan gritted her teeth and slightly raised her chin. Her pride did not allow her to cry, nor did it allow her to beg for love. Luo Yunxiao said, "In the Shushan continent, there is a huge barrier that covers the entire continent. Every once in a while, cracks will appear on the barrier, and countless monsters that only know how to devour flesh and blood will pour out from the cracks. These monsters are formidable and possess lethal poison within their bodies. Moreover, they can be reborn without limit. If they're allowed to wreak havoc in the world, then the 3 dimensions would be instantly destroyed. These monsters are called nightmare ghosts." Hong Lan's eyes widened in shock. She suddenly recalled that Qi Wen had mentioned that the sacred stone of their cleansing Le Pavilion was called the Nightmare Stone. Our Saint Stone, is it related to this poltergeist?" Luo Yunxiao nodded. 1,000 years ago, the Shushan continent experienced a great upheaval, and the barrier was deliberately torn apart by someone. Chapter 28:13. A giant poltergeist ghost came out of the crack. Its strength surpassed all the great powers of the Shushan continent at that time. It massacred countless people and corpses littered the land. It was only after the abbot of Debi Temple risked his life to kill it that it finally found peace. The Nightmare Stone was dropped by the poltergeist ghost after its death. To the people of the Shushan continent was a distant and superior existence. 99% of the people here lived less than 100 years and could never reach the tribulation passing stage. Even if they could reach the tribulation passing stage, they wouldn't be able to attract the lightning tribulation, let alone ascend. In the eyes of the people of the Shushan continent, the people of the Shushan continent were superior immortals. They were rulers who could crush ants like them with a single finger. However, such an unreachable immortal realm had actually suffered a calamity before. How powerful was the poltergeist ghost that could almost destroy the entire Shushan continent? Hearing this, Yuan Lan was shocked. She couldn't help but look at Luo Yunxiao's handsome face. Why was he so familiar with the Shushan continent? Compared to Yuan Lan's shock, Ye Yun and Chu Guangchuan were excited. Their eyes fell on the Nightmare Stone in Luo Yunxiao's hand, greed and desire in their eyes. The Nightmare Stone left behind by the poltergeist ghost that even the great powers of the Shushan continent couldn't resist. What kind of rare treasure was that? Their Mula Pavilion was indeed blessed by the heavens to be able to obtain a treasure like the Nightmare Stone. Ye Yun said, "Young Master Yunxiao, what do you mean by this? Even if the poltergeist ghost was violent when it was alive, it's dead now. Isn't it natural for the Nightmare Stone it left behind to be used by others?" "That's right." Chu Guangchuan sneered, "Young Master Yunxiao, please don't quibble anymore. Aren't the inner cores of those man-eating beasts still able to save lives and increase cultivation? Why can't we use the Nightmare Stone? If you really covet the Nightmare Stone and want to steal it, just say it. Why do you have to pretend?" The people of the Xiaoyao sect were furious at being slandered like this. Even Mu Yan's expression darkened. Only Luo Yunxiao's expression remained calm from beginning to end. 1,000 years ago, when the poltergeist ghosts had just been exterminated, someone in the Shushan continent had already discovered the usefulness of the Nightmare Stone. Mortals, cultivators, immortal cultivators, devil cultivators, and even god cultivators can use Nightmare Stones to increase their strength in a short period of time. Moreover, unlike medicinal pills, the Nightmare Stone's effect on a person's strength is vast and limitless. As long as we pay a sufficient price, we can even create an invincible army. The more Chu Guangchuan and Ye Yun listened, the more excited they became. The invincible and invincible army. Wasn't this the goal of the Cleansing Joy Pavilion? What they wanted was not just to live in a corner of the northern continent, but to accumulate enough power to take over the entire cultivation continent. At that time, all the resources in the world would belong to them. How far would it be to transcend the tribulation and ascend? Luo Yunxiao seemed to have seen through their thoughts as a trace of ridicule flashed across her eyes. If the Nightmare Stone was truly perfect and heaven-defying, why would the people of the Shushan continent allow it to wander to the Shushan continent? When the usefulness of the Nightmare Stone was discovered, a high monk from the Debii temple prophesied that it would be inauspicious and urged everyone not to use it. However, in the face of benefits and power, how many people would listen to such advice? Chapter 28:14. The Nightmare Stone passed through many hands and was finally picked up by a lucky, second-rate family head. He hid the Nightmare Stone in a secret place that was blocked by a barrier and used the Nightmare Stone to continuously produce powerful immortals. In a short 10 years, this second-rate family's power grew to the point where it could contend against the three major powers of the Shushan continent, the Polar Domain, the Nether Domain, and the Demon Race. Hong Lan couldn't help but ask, what happened to this family? What happened? Luo Yunxiao smirked. The family head was dreaming of dominating the Shushan continent and even started to invade the Polar Domain when the Nightmare Stone suddenly backfired. Everyone in this family became mindless, spiritless, soulless, and filled with killing intent. They became monsters that thirsted to devour flesh and blood. In other words, they all became starved ghosts. Hong Lan's pupils constricted and she unconsciously took a step back. No, impossible. You're talking nonsense. Chu Guangchuan was stunned at first, then he flew into a rage. Luo Yunxiao, don't try to mislead people. My cleansing joy pavilion has obtained the holy stone for hundreds of years and no one has ever become a starved ghost. Luo Yunxiao sneered, that's why I just asked, what do you think blasphemers are? Mindless, spiritless, and in the end, even their souls would dissipate and they would become monsters that only knew how to devour flesh and blood. Once bitten by such a monster, they would be infected and become a new monster. Hong Lan's face turned pale and her body swayed. It was as if a belief that she had guarded for a lifetime had completely collapsed at this moment. So you're saying that there are no blasphemers at all? When Huang Lang looked at Luo Yunxiao in a daze, the so-called blasphemers, from the beginning to the end, are just sacrifices to increase their own power. How can this be? In Yuanwu village, an old man with red eyes shouted, then what about my son who was sent to the unclean abyss after participating in the worship ceremony? I thought it was because he committed a sin in his previous life that he was rejected by the gods in this life. But now you're telling me that all of this is just a scam. You, give me back my son. Give me back my son. The old man charged at Chu Guangchuan as if he had gone mad, his skinny and powerless hand desperately trying to grab Chu Guangchuan's neck. However, Chu Guangchuan waved him lightly, and he fell to the ground. Grandpa. Xiao Ai rushed over to help the old man up and burst into tears. Father. Father, return my father to me. You are all scoundrels, Mula Pavilion is full of scoundrels. I don't want to worship the saintess anymore. Woo woo woo. Some people in the crowd could not help but cry out loud. And my husband. My husband also became a blasphemer during the sacrifice. My daughter, my poor daughter, do you hear? You're not a blasphemer at all. I'm useless, I couldn't protect you back then, boo-hoo. The entire place was filled with crying sounds, causing the faces of the people of Cleansing Le Pavilion to turn extremely ugly. Chu Guangchuan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He raised his hand and signaled to the people below. However, before they could make a move, Mayan swings the 7 absolute sword in the air, drawing a beautiful arc, and coldly says, "What? You realize that you can't hide your scandal anymore, so you want to silence me?" Chu Guangchuan said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense. What is the meaning of your Xiaoyao school? You came to my northern continent to mislead people with your fallacious words and ruin the reputation of my Mula Pavilion. Do you really think that there's no one in my northern continent? Chapter 28:15. Yishuang said, "Pft, what proof do you have that our saint stones are nightmare stones? My cleansing Le Pavilion has been offering sacrifices to the holy stone for 100 years, and we are still living in harmony. The family that you mentioned was defeated in 10 years. How can the two be compared?" Ling Yuma rolled her eyes. "Idiot, didn't you hear what my junior master said just now? Nightmare stones had to pay a certain price before they could display their corresponding abilities. You are just cultivators, but that family is made up of immortals. Can the price paid by both sides be the same?" Ling Yuxing nodded and said, "Not suffering a backlash in the past 100 years doesn't mean there won't be a backlash. It's just that the nightmare stone hasn't gathered enough energy. Isn't the best proof that the symptoms of the blasphemers you speak of exactly the same as the poltergeist ghosts?" Chu Guangchuan waved his sleeve and said loudly, "I won't argue with you. Young Master Yun Shao, if you still have a little bit of shame, quickly return our Mu Le Pavilion's holy stone. Also, these blasphemers are members of the Horton tribe. It is our freedom to deal with them as we see fit. Could it be that you, the unfettered seven, are already so overbearing to the point of interfering with the matters of others' clans?" Mu Yan looks at his uncontrollable anger and slightly narrows her eyes. "Don't tell me you already knew about the side effects of the nightmare stone and the blasphemers." Chu Guangchuan was stunned, and a wisp of astonishment and terror flashed swiftly in his eyes. But it's quickly covered up by flustered and exasperated anger. "Jun Mayan, I'm warning you, if you dare to spout venomous slander again, don't blame my Mu Le Pavilion, it seems that you really know." Mu Yan sneered. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and slowly shook his head. "No, not just that. The so-called blasphemers and the so-called unclean abyss were all created by your cleansing joy pavilion. This was to provide enough energy for the nightmare stone. This is the price you have to pay for using the nightmare stone, am I right? You're courting death." Chu Guangchuan abruptly took out the lushing and placed it next to his mouth. His spirit energy surged. Ear-piercing music resounds, and in a split second, it turns into hundreds of sound blades that fly towards Mayan. Mayan sneers, "You want to silence me just because you've been right? That depends on whether you have the ability or not." Before her voice falls, the Tian Mo Qin is already floating in front of her. His slender fingers plucked the strings lightly. Sound blade, activated. If Chu Guangchuan's sound blade attack was like 100 arrows being shot at the same time, Mu Yan's, zither sound blade, was a rain of swords, an inescapable net. Oh! Chu Guangchuan didn't even have time to react before his sound blades were completely shattered in the air. His body felt as if it was being sliced by 1,000 blades. In an instant, blood spurted out. It made him howl like a pig being slaughtered. Ling Yuma laughed mischievously, "You're very bold to compete with my junior sister in musical attack." Ling Yuxing, he died a horrible death too. The arrogant Chu Guangchuan fell to the ground with a thud and lay in a pool of blood, unable to get up for a long time. "Elder Chu." The people of Mu Le Pavilion rushed over to help Chu Guangchuan up. He glares at Mayan, "Jun Mayan, you actually dared to make a move." Mu Yan brushes off the dust on her clothes. "If I don't make a move, am I supposed to let him hit me? I'm sorry, but the Xiaoyao sect doesn't have the habit of taking a beating without fighting back. We only believe that if people don't offend us, we won't offend them." Mulan takes out the solitary ice and snow, playing the ethereal sound of the zither. Countless rays of light fall on Chu Guangchuan's body. Chapter 28:16. The wounds on Chu Guangchuan's body stop bleeding at a speed visible to the naked eye. Although it's not completely healed, this method of using medicine to make music is very good. Mu Yan couldn't help but show an expression of appreciation. On her way from the Yanwu continent to the Shuzhen continent, she had encountered very few musicians. Occasionally, she would meet one, but they were like Yi Shaoqin, the assistant pipa player in the three-courtyard tournament, people who were eager for quick success. They only used musical instruments and performance as a means to achieve fame and power. In their hearts, they don't have the slightest bit of love for music or the instrument in their hands. And this kind of character would be directly reflected in the music that was performed. Up until now, only the billowing music of the ocean contained such sincere emotions. She really loves the harp and treasures the lonely solitude of snow in her hands. That's why she can perfectly integrate her emotions, spiritual power, and music, and truly reach the level of a musician. It's a pity that such a noble musician was born in a filthy place like Le Pavilion. Ever since she was young, she had been brainwashed to discard her humanity and prioritize the interests of Le Pavilion. If this goes on, she doesn't know how long the clarity of her music can last. Under Yuan Lan's treatment, Chu Guangchuan slowly opens his eyes. Ye Yun and the others call out in delight, "Elder Chu, how are you?" Who would have thought that Chu Guangchuan would suddenly push them aside, his red eyes staring at Mu Yan, then looking at the Tian Mo Qin in her hands. "You, what kind of musician skill did you just use? What's that qin in your hands?" Ling Yuma impatiently says, "What kind of skill and zither is none of your business." No. How could it have nothing to do with me? Chu Guangchuan staggers up from the ground. "That's the lost unique skill of my Le Pavilion." Why can you use it? Where on earth did you learn these musician skills? And this qin, I now have reason to suspect that this qin is the other lost artifact of my Le Pavilion, the cry of the nine heavens crane. Yes, and the moves you used to resist the black fog of the unclean abyss. I thought they were familiar at the time, but I didn't think that they were the lost skills of my Le Pavilion for hundreds of years. Ye Yun and the others stare blankly at first, then widen their eyes in disbelief. "Elder Chu, is what you said true? Is that zither really the lost divine artifact of our cleansing joy pavilion, the cry of the nine heavens?" I've also heard that our cleansing joy pavilion used to have a powerful musician inheritance. Our strength was 100 or even 1,000 times stronger than it is now. Could it be that there really is a lost supreme art? But this is clearly my Le Pavilion's unique skill. How did it fall into the hands of this Jun Mayan Saintess? Ye Yun grabbed Hong Lan's hand and said excitedly, "That's great." Cry of the Nine Heavens crane had been lost for more than 10 years. It was the greatest regret of the previous generation Saintess when she died. Over the years, as long as a powerful zither appears, you will send someone to the Saint Lady Temple for inspection, just to confirm whether it is the cry of the Ninth Heaven crane. Now that we have found the real cry of the Ninth Heaven crane, you can also comfort the spirit of the former Saintess in heaven. At first, there was some doubt on Yuan Sherlan's face. When he heard Ye Yun's words, his heart shook, and his eyes couldn't help but ripple. The Cleansing Joy Pavilion's divine artifact was supposed to have two. One was the harp, solitary ice and snow, in the hands of Sea Dragon. Chapter 28:17. The other one was an inconspicuous zither called the Cry of the Ninth Heaven crane. Before Bailon matured, no one in Cleansing Joy Pavilion could control the solitary serenity of ice and snow. That was why solitary ice and snow had always been shelved. The other one was an inconspicuous zither called the Cry of the Ninth Heaven crane. Before Bailon matured, no one in Cleansing Joy Pavilion could control the solitary serenity of ice and snow. That was why solitary ice and snow had always been shelved. And the Holy Maiden had always used the Cry of the Ninth Heaven. The previous generation Saintess, who was also Bailan's mother, Bai Wei, was no exception. More than 10 years ago, a group of mysterious people appeared in Cleansing Joy Pavilion. They asked Cleansing Joy Pavilion to help them hunt down a few fugitives. At that time, Ban Lan was still young and didn't know the identity of those mysterious people. She only knew that they were very powerful. They were so powerful that the former holy maiden, who was already at the peak of the tribulation passing stage, and who was also Bai Lan's mother, couldn't resist them at all. After being intimidated, Ma Shiwei had no choice but to bring along her Cry of the Ninth Heaven crane and lead a large group of Mu Le Pavilion's elites to search for it. Who knew that in the end, this group of elites would be completely annihilated, and not even their bones were left behind. Only Shiwei and Great Elder Xianyuan dragged their heavily injured bodies back, but Cleansing Le Pavilion's divine weapon, Cry of the Nine Heavens crane, was lost by her. Not long after returning to Cleansing Joy Pavilion, Ma Yinwei passed away due to her heavy injuries. Before she died, she was filled with guilt. She felt that she was the one who caused the deaths of the elites of the Mu Le Pavilion. She was also the one who lost the Cry of the Ninth Heaven crane, causing the Mu Le Pavilion to lose the divine artifact. During those years, the status of the Saintess Temple of Cleansing Le Pavilion was in jeopardy. It wasn't until Hong Lan matured and was able to play the solitary snow and ice that the situation was completely reversed. But in Hong Lan's heart, the crane's Cry of the Ninth Heaven had always been on her mind, because that was her mother's final wish before she died. Hong Lan walked towards Mu Yen and said in a low voice, "Miss June, can you let me take your zither back to examine it for a few days? I guarantee that as long as this zither is not my Mu Le Pavilion's divine weapon, it will be returned to you in 3 days. Are you sick?" Ling Yuma said snappily, "This zither is my junior sister's contracted weapon. If it is casually given to you, if it is slightly damaged, her own divine soul will suffer a backlash. If it were you, would you be willing to hand it over for other people to study?" Ling Yuxing also said coldly, "I want you to let us study your zither for 3 days. Are you willing? Are you kidding me?" Before Ban Jinlan could reply, Chu Guangchuan and Yi Yun had already objected vehemently. The solitary ice and snow is our Cleansing Joy Pavilion's most precious treasure. Apart from the Saintess, it cannot be in the hands of anyone else. Hong Lan also frowned. The contract between her and the solitary star of ice and snow was no ordinary soul imprint. If she handed over Icy Snow Solitary, and someone purposely tried to erase her imprint, she would suffer a strong backlash. "Miss June, solitary ice and snow is too important to me, I can't hand it over to you. But apart from the solitary serenity of ice and snow, I can accept anything you want as a guarantee. Furthermore, I guarantee in the name of the Saintess of Mu Le Pavilion that as long as you don't steal the divine artifact of Mu Le Pavilion, this zither will be returned to you." "How can returning the zither be enough?" Chu Guangchuan said anxiously. "There's also the lost ultimate art of my Cleansing Le Pavilion. And our sacred stone. Saintess, these are very important to our Cleansing Joy Pavilion. You mustn't let them take them away." Chapter 28:18. Mu Yan looks at Yuan Sherlan with a smile that isn't a smile. "Do you think the conditions you proposed are very fair?" Hu Jinlan's face immediately turned red. He subconsciously glanced at Luo Yunxiao. Of course, she knew that the deal she proposed was too biased. He wasn't willing to hand over the solitary serenity of the ice and snow, but he insisted that Mayan hand over her personal instrument. But Cry of the Ninth Heaven crane was too important to her. The Cleansing Le Pavilion was a responsibility that she could not abandon. He took a deep breath and forced himself to calm down. "Regardless of whether my conditions are fair or not, this is your only chance to prove your innocence. Or, does the Xiaoyao school really want to be enemies with the Cleansing Joy Pavilion?" Chu Guangchuan sneered, "Don't be so shameless. Since you've entered my northern continent, you'd better listen to me if you want to live. Even though Chu Guangchuan had just been beaten by Mayan until he was looking for his teeth all over the floor. However, he was still incomparably arrogant and showed no signs of fear. This was because they were in the northern continent, within the boundaries of the Cleansing Joy Pavilion. This arrogant and despotic attitude completely angered Lang Yuma and the others. Damn it, don't be so shameless. This is what I want to say. You want to steal my junior sister's things? Fine. Let's see if the carefree sect is afraid of you or not. In an instant, spiritual energy surged, and the atmosphere was tense. They were just 5 nascent soul cultivators. However, the immense pressure that was instantly released caused the expressions of everyone in Cleansing Delight Pavilion, including Elder Chu and the 5 Sanuses, to change. They had always thought that Jun Mayan was the only strong one among the Xiaoyao 7. Jun Mayan was the only one who could beat Elder Chu, who was in the leaving body stage, with her nascent soul cultivation. But at this moment, he discovered that other than Jun Mayan, the other 4 were also so strong that it made his scalp go numb. Judging from the pressure of their auras, it seemed that each of the 4 of them could beat up Chu Guangchuan. Chu Guangchuan's face alternated between green and white as he hurriedly looked at Bailan. Saintess! Why don't you make a move? He shouted, everything is for Mulu Pavilion. There was a hint of struggle and shame in Honglan's eyes. Her gaze sweeps over to Luo Yunxiao, who hasn't spoken all this time, and she finally clenches her teeth. Jun Mayan, I'll give you one last chance. Don't force me to activate the Myriad Torrent formation. As she spoke, she had already activated her Ice Snow Solitude. His fingers plucked the strings of the zither, and the melody was ethereal and pleasant to listen to. As the zither was played, countless rays of light shot out from the zither and spread in all directions. It was as if he was trying to pull something between heaven and earth. Mayan sneers. The Tian Mo Qin spins a few circles in the air, and steadily falls in front of her. Did he really think that she was afraid of this stupid array? However, before she could speak, she heard a gentle and magnetic man's voice ring out. There's no need to give me another chance. Luo Yunxiao looked at Honglan, then slowly turned to the people of the Mulu Pavilion and said, Now, it's not the Mulu Pavilion that wants to cause trouble for the Xiaoyao sect, it's the Xiaoyao sect that doesn't want to let this go. What? Honglan was shocked and pained. However, Luo Yunxiao did not even look at her as she raised her hand and threw out an array disc. The formation plate hovered in the air and began to spin rapidly. In a split second, strands of silver energy flew out from the formation plate and shot out in all directions. In the next moment, Honglan's eyes widened in shock, and she could no longer continue playing the guqin. How could this be? Saintess! What are you doing? Quickly activate the array. Chapter 28:19. Honglan looks at Luo Yunxiao in disbelief. What did you do? Why was her connection with the Want to Great Array cut off? Yi Yun and the others also realize something and become nervous. The Want to Great Array is another treasure of our Mulu Pavilion. What did you do, Yunxiao Gongzi? Don't tell me you want to take our formation for yourself. How can everyone in the Xiaoyao school be so shameless? Jun Mayan stole our zither and learned our secret arts. Yunxiao Gongzi, you robbed our holy stone, and now you still want it. Slap. A heavy slap lands on Yishuang's face. She falls to the ground and can't get up for a long time. Then, slap slap slap. The continuous applause caused everyone in Cleansing Joy Pavilion to fall to the ground, except for Yuan Sherlan. Yi Yun, Yishuang, Yifeng, Yishui, Yiyu, and Dong Ling are fine. Being slapped in the air, their cheeks are swollen and they don't suffer any real injury. But Chu Guangchuan and his subordinates, who scolded them the most viciously, have their bones broken. Some scream like pigs being slaughtered, and some marry each other. Hong Lan stares at Luo Yunxiao in disbelief. What are you doing? She doesn't even think about it. Luo Yunxiao, who has always been gentle and elegant, is actually so ruthless. Luo Yunxiao says lightly, "Didn't you accuse our Xiaoyao school of robbing your things? Since we've been accused, if we don't prove it, won't we suffer a loss?" Pfft. Mayan and the others can't help but laugh. I didn't know that Junior Master is so two-faced. Ahem, isn't it the good tradition of our Xiaoyao school to return a tooth for a tooth and an eye for an eye? Luo Yunxiao has always been indifferent. On the surface, he is gentle and elegant, but in fact, he has an indescribable sense of alienation from everything in the world. But these few times, in order to protect them, he attacks again and again, showing his anger and emotions. This makes the people of the Xiaoyao school feel that their junior master, who is like an immortal from the ninth heaven, seems to be a lot closer to them. The atmosphere in the Xiaoyao school is cheerful. The people of Cleansing Joy Pavilion were ashamed and furious at the same time. With tears in her eyes, Dongling fiercely glared at Luo Yunxiao and roared hysterically, "The saintess has fallen in love with you. For you, she even tolerated your spirit beast and the people of the Xiaoyao sect. How can you be so heartless and let her down?" Luo Yunxiao subconsciously glances at Mayan. Seeing her gaze sweep back and forth between Yuan Shilan and him, he couldn't help but feel a pang in his heart. But he quickly covered it up. His appearance was elegant beyond compare, but his expression was as indifferent as smoke. "I've never fallen in love, so how can I be heartless?" These short words were like a sharp blade that ruthlessly pierced through Military Orchid's heart. Her face was pale from the pain, and she was on the verge of collapsing. The thing that she was most unable to accept was that Luo Yunxiao didn't even look down on her, nor did she feel disgusted or detest. She purely didn't take her seriously in the slightest. "Luo Yunxiao, you're too much." Ye Yun screamed. Her fingers fiercely plucked on the pipa. "We just want to take back Cleansing Joy Pavilion's things. Is that wrong?" Luo Yunxiao sneered. "A frog at the bottom of a well, short-sighted. Do you really think that everyone in the world covets your Cleansing Joy Pavilion's things?" As he spoke, he threw the holy stone in front of Military Orchid. Chapter 28-20. I've already explained the origin and backlash of the Nightmare Stone. If you say that it belongs to your Cleansing Joy Pavilion, then so be it. I hope you won't regret it when the entire Horton tribe suffers a backlash in the future. Are you cursing us? Enough. Hong Lan's face was pale. She picked up the Nightmare Stone and shouted, "Let's go. Saintess. How can we just leave like this?" Cry of the Nine Heavens Crane and our Cleansing Le Pavilion's ultimate technique. Yuan Shilan raised his voice and roared, "I said go. Do you want to disobey my orders? Or do you think you haven't embarrassed yourselves enough today?" As she spoke, she tightly gripped the Nightmare Stone in her hand. Without sparing Luo Yunxiao another glance, he soared into the sky. The wind whistled past her cheeks, and a tear fell from the corner of her eye, dissipating in the air. Yi Yun took out a flying boat and carried the injured people of Cleansing Le Pavilion onto it. Before leaving, she fiercely glares at Mu Yan and Luo Yunxiao before turning to leave. Seeing that they had flown away, Lin Yuma frowned and said, "Junior Marshal Uncle, you're letting them go just like that?" It didn't conform to the Xiaoyao sect's principle of, if people don't offend us, we won't offend them. If people offend us, we'll cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Luo Yunxiao remained silent. On the contrary, Mu Yan slowly says, "Mula Pavilion has indeed created many innocent blasphemers, but it has also cured many patients over the years. Furthermore, there's one more thing that Mayan didn't say. The entire Horton tribe, and even the entire northern continent, had to offer sacrifices to the Nightmare Stone every year to receive its power. Those ordinary cultivators who had only strengthened their physical bodies were fine. However, it was different for those gods' givers who had improved their cultivation and were given special abilities. They had to participate in the sacrificial ceremony every year to receive the power bestowed by the Nightmare Stone. Once it stopped, these people's bodily functions would begin to deteriorate and their spiritual power would dry up. In the end, his symptoms were not much different from those of a blasphemer. It was like an addiction that could not be broken. Consuming too much would turn one into a monster. Consuming too little would also turn one into a monster. From the moment they started using the pyrolite stones, they had already entered a vicious circle. Moreover, with the passage of time, generation after generation, all gods' bestowers and even ordinary cultivators would become more and more reliant on the Nightmare Stones until they were beyond redemption. Mayan looks at Junior Martial Uncle. Chiwen said that you need that Nightmare Stone. Is it okay to give it to Mula Pavilion like this? Luo Yunxiao turned to look at her and moved his lips. Just when Mu Yan thinks that he is going to answer, she suddenly hears him say coldly, Jun Mayan, how many times have you let yourself fall into danger? The corner of Mayan's mouth twitches. Cough, Junior Martial Uncle, are you still angry? She really wanted to explain that the god-punishing shaman could not hurt her. However, little Martial Uncle's expression was too terrifying. She couldn't explain it at all. Ayaya, how could Master bear to be angry with you, Mei Yen Yen? Even if the Master was really angry, as long as you pounced on him and gave him a kiss, the Master would already be howling. Master, spare me. Chiwen won't dare to speak nonsense anymore. Luo Yunxiao stared coldly at Chiwen, who was in her hand. Her expression was cold and stern, and she no longer had her usual indulgence. Who told you to act on your own and steal something from Mula Pavilion? Chiwen said in an aggrieved tone, but that wasn't an ordinary thing. It was the Nightmare Stone that Master wanted. Boo-hoo-hoo, Master, I know I was wrong. In the future, I won't dare to act on my own. Please don't, Chiwen, okay? Chapter 28-21. Mei Yan Yan, help me put in a few good words. Chiwen will become a wild child without a master. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth twitches. What fucking wild child? Chiwen, do you know that you're a few hundred years old magical beast? And you're a fucking womanizer. Luo Yunxiao's face darkens. After leaving the northern continent, go back to the Xingyuan dock by yourself. Master. The joking expression on Chiwen's face disappeared at this moment and was replaced by panic. Master, are you joking? I really know that I was wrong. I shouldn't have gone to steal the insect stone without telling you. I shouldn't have implicated Mei Yan Yan and the others. In the future, I really won't dare to do it again. Master, you can punish me however you want, just don't drive me away. When I came out of the Xingyuan dock, I swore that I would follow you forever. Mu Yan, quickly help me persuade Master, okay? Chiwen clings to Mu Yan's clothes, not even calling her Mei Yan Yan, that she usually likes to talk about. Her eyes are filled with uncontrollable anxiety, panic, and pleading. Mu Yan also feels that Chiwen is too bold. If she lets it continue to cause trouble, sooner or later, it will bring disaster to little Martial Uncle. But wouldn't it be too harsh to drive Chiwen away directly? She moves her lips, but in the end, she doesn't say anything. Little Martial Uncle has always been a person who is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. He will never act impulsively because of impulsiveness. There must be a reason for letting Chiwen leave. You help me persuade Master, okay? I don't want to go. I don't want to leave Master. Seeing that Mu Yan doesn't reply, Chi-Wen tugs at Ling Yuma and Ling Yuxing's clothes. Her voice becomes more and more shrill and anxious, even carrying a hint of sobbing. Ling Yuxing can't bear it. Little martial uncle, Chi-Wen knows he was wrong. Can you give him another chance? Ling Yuma also says, yes, if you're angry, just punish him severely. He has been following you. If you drive him away, you might not be used to it. Chi-Wen looks up at Luo Yunxiao, only hoping that he can take back his order. Ling Yuma nudges Mu Yan with her elbow. If one were to talk about pleading for leniency, then junior sister would definitely be the most useful. Mu Yan is silent for a moment, then coughs lightly. Chi cannot escape punishment, but the death penalty can still be spared. Moreover, I still need its help with something. Young martial uncle, why don't you make an exception and let it redeem itself for a period of time? Luo Yunxiao snapped, what can it help you with? In order to plead for it, you spared no effort. Mayan smiles brightly. If Chi-Wen can really help me, would junior martial uncle be willing to spare his dog life? Luo Yunxiao saw that she rarely showed such a crafty look in front of her, and her brows couldn't help but soften a bit. But he said, I'm just asking it to return to Xingyuan Dock. Why do I want its life? Wow! Master, if Chi-Wen leaves you, doesn't that mean you want to kill Chi-Wen? Chi-Wen hugs Mayan and cries, Mei Yan, I knew you were the best. Tell me, do you want me to be a cow or a horse for you? As long as Master doesn't drive me away, I'm willing to do anything. Mu Yan sees Luo Yunxiao crossing his arms over his chest, looking like he wants to see how Chi-Wen will help him. She can't help but smile. Does junior martial uncle really think that I'm giving him a perfunctory reason? She beckons to Wen Huanglang and the villagers of Yuanwu village. Chapter 28-22. Hundreds of people immediately lined up neatly and eagerly ran over. Madam Enchantress, what can I do for you? Madam Enchantress, if there's anything you need us to do, just tell us. In times of crisis, these people habitually called Mayan Madam Immortal. Now that they've come back to their senses, they remembered that Chi-Wen disliked Madam Immortal, so they changed it to Madam Enchantress. Mayan said, I promise to completely expel the god-killing shaman from your body. It might be very painful during this period. Are you willing to accept it? Willing. Madam Enchantress is willing to save us. What's a bit of suffering? That's right, let alone suffering. Even if you ask me to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a pot of boiling oil, I won't even frown. Mayan nodded and grabbed something from the Tian Mo Chin space. In a split second, a huge shadow shrouded the villagers of Yuanwu village. Ha! What's this? Stupid, can't you see it? It's a tree. I know it's a tree, but what kind of tree is it? The villagers of Yuanwu village kept circling around the tree that Mayan had just taken out. Even the people of the Xiaoyao school were curious and gathered around. Only Luo Yunxiao, who was standing on the periphery, had her pupils shrink after seeing the tree. Chu Moli, who had always been gentle and quiet, spoke up at this time. Is this tree related to the treatment of the god-killing shaman? Mayan shook her head, then nodded. In fact, I was looking for this tree in order to treat eldest brother's illness. Ha! Eldest brother's illness is related to this tree. What kind of tree is this? Mayan's eyes were focused on the tall and lush tree, and she slowly said, when eldest brother was unconscious that day, I couldn't tell what kind of illness he had. I only knew that in his heart vein, there was a kind of energy that seemed like poison but wasn't, like evil but wasn't. So, I could only conclude that eldest brother was poisoned. Eldest brother's illness only broke out when he entered the snow demon forest, so there must be something in the forest that caused him to be poisoned. In the end, I found this tree. Ordinary people might not be able to find the difference between this tree and ordinary spirit plants. However, she, who had used all plants' resonating resonance, could clearly feel that the energy contained in the tree and the poison in eldest senior brother's body complemented each other. At the time, I didn't know what this poison was. But now, everything is clear. That was the god-slaying shaman. At the same time, it was also the poison that was slowly deposited in the cultivator's body after being used by the nightmare stone. And to completely expel the god-slaying witch from the bodies of the villagers of Yuanwu village, relying on the skills of a Shin musician is not enough. It was necessary to use the mutually reinforcing and restraining things contained in the tree as a guide to fully exert the effect of the art of magic yellow. This is also the reason why Mine confidently told the people of Mulu Pavilion that she can cure the villagers of Yuanwu village. She was just a little confused. Whether it was the god-punishing witch or the poison of the nightmare stone, they would not accumulate in a cultivator's body in a short period of time. It was just like how Ling Yuma and the others had stayed in the unclean abyss for 2 days and did not need to purposely get rid of the poison. But eldest senior brother had clearly just entered the northern continent. How could there be so much god-killing witch poison in his body? So strong. Even more so than the villagers of Yuanwu village who had lived in the Horton tribe all their lives. Mayan composed herself and threw her doubts to the back of her mind. The sound of the zither slowly rang out, and countless rays of light enveloped the tree. Chapter 28-23. After an hour, the originally green leaves and brown branches began to be plated with a layer of silver brilliance. Then, the whole tree began to tremble violently. Leaves flew towards the villagers of Yuanwu village. Eat these leaves. At Mu Yan's command, the villagers didn't hesitate and directly put the leaves into their mouths. The moment the leaves entered their stomachs, a scorching stream of air sprang up from their stomachs and instantly flowed through their whole body. Ah, so hot, so painful, the skin of the villagers suddenly turned red, as if they were on fire. Bean-sized beads of sweat came out from their foreheads. Along with the beads of sweat, there were also wisps of black energy lines. However, these energy strands seemed to be reluctant to leave their bodies. From time to time, they would drill in and out of their skin, unwilling to leave. Mu Yan's hand kept playing and said loudly, "Qi Wen, didn't you want to atone for your crimes? Now is your chance." "Ah." Mu Yan said, "Go and swallow all the devil energy overflowing from their bodies." "What?" Qi Wen blinked. "Swallow. Swallow the devil energy. It's a magical beast, it's not impossible." Devil energy was also a great tonic for it. But the problem was that the devil energy coming out from other people's bodies. It was just like other people's feces, very smelly and disgusting, okay? Now, not only did it have to eat other people's feces, but it also had to eat hundreds of people's feces. How could Qi Wen bear this? "You don't accept." Mu Yan hooked up her lips and looked at Luo Yunxiao, "Young martial uncle, I take back my plea, you take this guy. I'll eat, okay?" Qi Wen was scared out of her wits. Without hesitation, she rushed over and inhaled the devil energy coming out from Wen Huanglang's body. Sure enough, the devil energy that was going in and out of Wen Huanglang's body, refusing to leave, was completely swallowed by Qi Wen in a split second. An hour later. Burp-ugh, Qi Wen pressed her abdomen with her claws, lying on the ground like a pile of mud, unable to get up for a long time. I can't eat anymore. I don't want to swallow devil energy in this life. Boo-hoo, it's too scary. Mu Yan looks at its mud-like appearance and can't help but burst out laughing. Little martial uncle, I believe that from today onwards, Qi Wen will definitely not dare to make any more mistakes. Qi Wen nodded with tears in her eyes. Regardless of whether it was his master or Mei Yan Yan, they were both too terrifying. It didn't want to experience this kind of punishment a second time. Mu Yan looked at Luo Yunxiao and said with a smile, "So, young martial uncle, seeing that it's already in such a miserable state, please spare it this time." Luo Yunxiao was silent for a moment before nodding. "All right. But I have one condition." "What condition?" Luo Yunxiao points to the tree that Mu Yan has just taken out of the Tian Mo Qin space, and says in a deep voice, "I want the trunk of this tree." Mayan blinks, "Just this?" Luo Yunxiao nodded. She was speechless and wanted to roll her eyes. "Youngest martial uncle, I only took this tree to treat eldest martial brother's illness. Actually, a few branches were enough. You can have them all if you want." At that time, she moved the whole tree here purely because she found it troublesome. Moreover, there was no way to estimate how serious eldest martial brother's poisoning condition was. Luo Yunxiao looked at her deeply. "Do you know the origin of this tree?" 1,000 years ago. Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Mayan waved her hand and put the tree into her Qianquan bag, stuffing it into Luo Yunxiao's hand. Chapter 28-24. Mu Yan only left a huge branch for herself. From her experience in treating the villagers of Yuanwu village, this big branch is enough to cure the entire Horton tribe. Luo Yunxiao holds the Qinquan bag in a daze. "Don't you want to know the origin of this tree?" "Hee, little junior sister is afraid that the value of this tree is too high, and you can't bear to part with it. It's better not to know." "There's no other way," who told little junior sister to always be so poor. She can't wait to convert all the treasures on her into Jingshi. Mu Yan righteously says, "Am I that kind of person who likes Jingshi? Little martial uncle is one of us, the things we give to little martial uncle, value." Luo Yunxiao takes out a Qinquan bag and empties it. Clatter, countless dazzling obsidian crystals roll down, piling up into a small hill. This time, the hill is more than 3 times bigger than the one Luo Yunxiao gave them last time. Mu Yan's eyes stare straight, her impassioned words of pretense of generosity can no longer go on. Leng Yuma directly pounces on it. "Damn it! Obsidian crystals, these are all obsidian crystals. I've never seen them in my entire life." Luo Yunxiao looks at their appearance when they see the Jingshi, a faint smile appearing in her eyes. Her cold and indifferent eyes seem to be stained with a trace of warmth. After packing up everything, Mu Yan and the others prepare to set off to find Yun Ruhan and Luo Yu. According to Wen Huanglang, the old woman who can use the red compass should be a member of the Yun family. The Yun family is also a great family in the northern continent of Ziyunjia, and does not belong to Mu Le Pavilion. However, their relationship with Mu Le Pavilion has always been close, and they have many marriages. Therefore, although the old woman is a member of the Yun family, she could command the guards of Mu Le Pavilion at that time. "Little martial uncle, you want to travel with us?" Seeing Luo Yunxiao nod, Mu Yan and the others are both surprised and happy. They have long been accustomed to little martial uncle appearing and disappearing like a ghost, coming and going without stopping. They thought that this time, he would be like before, solving their crisis and then leaving. They didn't expect that this time, little martial uncle would act together with them. "Little martial uncle is worried that we offended Mu Le Pavilion and will suffer retaliation, right?" "Hee, maybe little martial uncle is also worried about Xiao Qi and eldest senior brother." Luo Yunxiao allowed them to laugh and tease her, but she remained silent. If they went overboard, he would punish them directly. They were tormented to the point of hovering between life and death and peeling off a layer of skin. They no longer dared to speak carelessly. Just like that, the group quickly arrived at the Yun family's territory. In the northern land of the Purple Cloud world, the place with the most human traffic was usually called the market. In the center of the Yun family, there was a Yanyu bazaar similar to the Wanjin bazaar. Just as they were about to enter Cloudfield Bazaar, Luo Yunxiao's expression suddenly changed, and she stopped in her tracks. Mu Yan and the others turned to look. A black talisman floated out from his body, floated in mid-air, and then slowly burned. Within the lingering black fog, a blurry figure was faintly discernible. Then, a soft and pleasant voice with a sobbing tone sounded. Shao, your brother Yuan Yi is in trouble, come back quickly. Come back and save him. Only you can save him. Luo Yunxiao's thin lips moved, as if he wanted to say something. Then, another low voice sounded impatiently, why are you wasting words with him? Don't use the Big Dipper technique and bring him back. Can't wait. Chapter 28-25. Mu Yan was standing next to Luo Yunxiao. She watched as the blood on his face and the warmth in his eyes faded, turning into a desolate heart. She subconsciously called out, young martial uncle. She stretched out her hand as if she wanted to grab something. However, the black smoke from the burning talisman suddenly gushed out and wrapped around Luo Yunxiao. Young martial uncle. Mu Yan shouted and rushed over. However, she only managed to grab a corner of Luo Yunxiao's clothes. He could only watch helplessly as he disappeared right in front of his eyes. Mu Le Pavilion. The Saintess has returned. With a series of shouts, the middle door of the Saintess Hall opened and a group of people filed in. Elder Xian Yuan hurried forward and said anxiously, the holy stone has been found. Before he could finish his words, he found that something was wrong. He saw that the 5 saintesses' hair were all disheveled and their cheeks were swollen. Because they were women, Luo Yunxiao did not hit them hard. However, the slap he sent out in midair contained immortal energy. Mu Yinglan tried her best but could not make the swelling go away immediately. She could only wait for them to slowly heal. As for Chu Guangquan and the others, they were even worse off. Several of the bones in their bodies were broken, and every one of them was enough to make them unable to walk and suffer so much pain that they wanted to die. The pain of these broken bones could not be healed by musician skills, so they could only endure it. And Chu Guangquan was the most miserable. One of his broken bones was his spine. At this time, he was lying on the bed with grief and indignation, fear and despair. Other people's bones could grow back, but he was likely to be paralyzed in bed for the rest of his life. Who is it? Who hurt you? Xian Yuan said angrily, is the bastard who stole the holy stone really so powerful? Did you get the holy stone back? Mu Yinglan bit her lip and stretched out her hand. A reddish-brown stone was exposed and slowly flew in the direction of the praying god tower. Seeing that the holy stone had returned, Xian Yuan breathed a sigh of relief. What happened? Who hurt Elder Chu like this? Xiaoyao School. It's all their fault. Chu Guangquan roared and struggled to get up, but he found that he couldn't feel anything from his neck down. He couldn't move at all. He was filled with grief, indignation, and despair. He couldn't help but shout, Saintess, Great Elder, you must avenge me. Ye Yun took a step forward. Covering his swollen cheek with his sleeve, he recounted what had happened outside the unclean abyss today. The more Grand Elder Xian Yuan listened, the more frightened he became, his face turning green and white. When he hears that the zither that Jun Mayan is using is very likely the lost artifact of Mu Le Pavilion, the cry of the ninth heaven crane, his eyes flash. But it was quickly covered by excitement. Is the musician's skill that Jun Mayan displayed really that powerful? Absolutely. Ye Yun nodded solemnly. Ye Shuang and the others were unwilling, but they had to admit it. Whether it's fighting or healing, her musician skills are beyond imagination. Ye Shuang also described what had happened in the Clear Night Hall. I always feel that the musician skills displayed by this Jun Mayan are very similar to our Mu Le Pavilions. Yi Yun said hesitantly, it's even more powerful than the musician's skills inherited from our Mu Pavilion. Chu Guangchuan said loudly, I already said that it's the lost secret skill of our Mu Pavilion. Great Elder, as long as we take back these secret skills, the strength of our Mu Pavilion will not be the same as before. Chapter 28-26. Xian Yuan paced back and forth, while the look in his eyes constantly changed. Sometimes excited, sometimes greedy, and sometimes nervous. Regarding the lost secret art of Clean Le Pavilion, Chu Guangchuan and the others did not know much about it. Xian Yuan was the only one in the entire Clean Le Pavilion who knew the truth. Clean Le Pavilion was said to be unrivaled in the musician path for thousands of years. But in fact, it was only 1,000 years ago that they really rose to become a world-famous music doctor. This was all because 1,000 years ago, when the ancestor of Clean Le Pavilion went to the Woodfern Sea to gain experience, he accidentally picked up a broken cosmos bag. Inside this cosmos bag, there was a cry of the ninth heaven crane, an ice and snow solitude, a holy stone, and a mirage stone that had been mostly worn out. The mirage stones recorded in them were all incomparably mysterious musician skills. The ancestor of Clean Le Pavilion was originally a musician. After seeing the images recorded in the mirage stone, he was shocked and immediately began to learn. Because of this cosmos bag, Clean Le Pavilion gradually became a unique music doctor inheritance in the true cultivation continent. But unexpectedly, the damaged mirage stone, after persisting for a few years, turned into powder. Moreover, the musician's skills taught inside were too difficult, and it was impossible to master them all in a few years. Therefore, the ancestor of Clean Le Pavilion could only watch the secret art slip away from his hands with heartache and unwillingness. In the images recorded in the mirage stone, there was a sentence. The images recorded in the mirage stone are only used to support the god musician sect's secret art. Do not be greedy for simplicity, using it as a reference, it will be difficult to achieve great things. What did this sentence mean? It meant that the secret art recorded in the mirage stone, which shocked Clean Le Pavilion, was just an empty shell, used by others to assist in the cultivation of the real secret art. Even the empty shell was so powerful, not to mention the real secret art. Since then, Clean Le Pavilion mobilized all of its forces to search the true cultivation continent. They hoped to find the real secret art of the god musician sect. However, the result was in vain. It was not until the ancestor of Clean Le Pavilion discovered the magical use of the holy stone that he gradually gave up on this idea. But almost all the high-level members of Clean Le Pavilion knew that their Clean Le Pavilion had a secret art that was lost outside. If they could retrieve this lost art, then the Cleansing Joy Pavilion would be like adding wings to a tiger, and they would be invincible. Grand Elder Xian Yuan knew more than they did. At this time, he clearly realized that it was a unique skill of the god musicians. What that Jun Mayan grasps must be the godly musician's secret art that they've been searching for thousands of years. Great Elder Xian Yuan suddenly slaps the table, his face filled with righteous indignation and excitement. I don't know who this Jun Mu Yan is, but my Mu Le Pavilion's ancestral secret technique cannot be allowed to fall into the hands of others. The Xiaoyao sect is going too far. They stole the holy stone of the Mu Le Pavilion, let the blasphemer go, and now they've injured an elder of the Mu Le Pavilion. They don't even respect the Mu Le Pavilion. Everyone nodded in agreement. Elder Chu even had tears in his eyes as he said, Grand Elder, you must seek justice for us. You must help Cleansing Le Pavilion recover their divine artifacts and ultimate arts. Xian Yuan heavily nods, then looks at Jin Lan. Saintess, I wonder where Jun Mayan is now. Jin Lan frowns, not answering for a long time. Only when Xian Yuan urges her, does she slowly say, Grand Elder, is what young Master Yun Shao said about the holy stone true? Are those blasphemers really innocent? Chapter 28-27. Xian Yuan stares blankly, then says with displeasure, Saintess, what do you mean by that? Don't tell me you believe in an outsider, but not in the ancestors of my Mulu Pavilion. Have you forgotten how much hardship my Mulu Pavilion had to pay to protect the people of the Horden tribe? Even your mother, Yuan Wei, sacrificed her life to protect this land. Are you questioning the inheritance and glory of my Mulu Pavilion for a man? Being scolded, Yuan Lan lowers her head, feeling ashamed in her heart. Great Elder, it's Yuan Lan's fault. Yuan Lan shouldn't have questioned the Mulu Pavilion that mother protected with her life. I will definitely take back the cry of the ninth heaven crane and the lost art. Saying so, she takes out the ice snow solitary, closes her eyes, and gently plucks the strings. Because the entire northern continent is shrouded in the 10,000 Torrents Great Array, and the 10,000 Torrents Great Array is connected to Yuan Lan's soul. Therefore, everything that happens in the 10,000 Torrents Great Array can be transmitted to her sea of consciousness. Yuan Lan opens her eyes, revealing a surprised and perplexed expression. They went to the Yun family's Wild Cloud Bazaar. Moreover, young Master Yun Xiao isn't among them. There's no trace of Luo Yunxiao's aura in the entire array. Hearing this, everyone is pleasantly surprised. The one they originally feared the most was the continent's #1 swordsman, young Master Yun Xiao. And just now, outside the unclean abyss, Luo Yunxiao also showed them what it means to have overwhelming strength. Whether it's the 10,000 Torrents Great Array or the advantage in numbers, they're all useless to him. He only needs to wave his hand, and they won't be able to resist. If Luo Yunxiao had always been by Mayan's side, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven for them to obtain the zither and the lost art. But now, Luo Yunxiao is gone. Only Yuan Lan's heart surges with unspeakable sorrow. There's a little satisfaction in her chest that slowly dissipates, leaving only emptiness and loneliness. For the first time in her life, she's moved, and perhaps it's also the only time. Was it going to end in embarrassment and despair just like that? Yuan Lan closes her eyes, dissolving the heat in them. When she opens them again, there's only callousness and determination left. She looks at Great Elder Xian Yuan and says in a low voice, the Wild Cloud Bazaar is within the Yun family's sphere of influence. This matter requires Great Elder. Before he could finish his words, a figure suddenly rushed in from outside. This person was wearing the deacon uniform of Mulu Pavilion, but she was clearly not from the Saint Lady Temple. As soon as he entered, he charged at Grand Elder Xian Yuan. Great Elder, urgent news has come from the Yun family. The newcomer knelt down in front of Xian Yuan, raised his hands high above his head, and handed over a red paper crane. Xian Yuan frowned. He was very unhappy about being disturbed at this time. But Inaxia was still angry, and she took the paper crane. As soon as the paper crane entered his hand, it turned into an image. A hunchbacked old woman with a head full of white hair appeared above. Her eyes were slightly red, and the wrinkles on her face were slightly trembling from excitement. She said loudly, First Elder, young Master Ji Feng has returned. He's still alive. Please come back and take a look. Xian Yuan was stunned and only reacted after a long while. Who was the young Master Ji Feng that the old woman mentioned? He could not help but narrow his eyes, revealing a surprised expression. Young Master Ji Feng. Yi Yun pondered for a moment, also revealing a shocked expression. Could it be Yun Ji Feng, the original successor of the Yun family, Great Elder's grandson? But he isn't. Chapter 28-28. Yi Yun couldn't help but look at Ma Yanwei. The Yun family had a tradition of marrying Mulu Pavilion. Elder Xuanyuan's daughter, Xian Menglan, married Yun Zhaoxing, the head of the Yun family. Yun Jifeng was their son. So Ye Yun and the others certainly remembered the name Yun Jifeng. But at the same time, they also remembered that Yun Jifeng should have died more than 10 years ago. At that time, Ma Yanwei and Elder Xianyuan brought the elites of Mu Le Pavilion to look for him. Yun Jifeng and his cousin Yun Heng also went with them. Who knew that they would never return? After that, the Yun family sent a lot of people to look for him, but they couldn't even find his corpse. Slowly, everyone forgot the existence of Yun Jifeng. Only his mother, who had been by his side all these years, refused to believe that her young master was dead, and kept searching for him in the northern continent. However, Xianyuan had witnessed his grandson's death with his own eyes. But he didn't have time to bring the corpse back, and was thrown off the cliff by the airwave. How could a dead person come back? So when Xianyuan heard the words, "Young Master Jifeng," he was stunned for a long time before he reacted. The old woman was talking about his grandson. "Great Elder, what's going on?" Ma Yanlan was also puzzled. "I remember when you and Mother came back, you said that everyone who went with you in that battle was annihilated. Only Mother and you returned with serious injuries. There was also Yun Heng who escaped. Because he was afraid, he didn't enter the battlefield." Xianyuan frowned. "I'll go to the Yun family." He also wanted to know how his grandson, who he had watched die, had come back alive. If he was really alive, where did he go all these years? The people of the Xiaoyao school watched Luo Yunxiao disappear, dumbfounded. After a long time, they came back to their senses. "Is little Uncle Master okay? Who the hell are those two people who are talking? Their tone is really disgusting." "That's right. What right do they have to be so arrogant and bossy around young martial uncle?" Mayan frowns. "I don't know what they want Xiao Shishu to do by letting him go back. Young martial uncle wouldn't be injured again, right?" She couldn't forget that time in the Starry School. Little Uncle Master suddenly disappeared, and when he came back, his back was badly mutilated. At that time, they also asked who hurt him, but they didn't get an answer. Bastard. If I find out who hurt little martial uncle, I'll definitely skin him alive and pull out his tendons. Ling Yuma recalled the scene back then and gritted her teeth in anger. But now, no matter how worried they were, there was nothing they could do. Just by looking at how that person was able to take Luo Yunxiao away with a talisman, one could tell how strong they were. If they wanted to contend against him now, it would be like an ant trying to shake a tree. Mu Yan took a deep breath. "Junior martial uncle, even if we want to interfere, we can't. Right now, let's look for eldest senior brother and Xiao Qi." Everyone nodded. Mu Yan is about to speak when her complexion suddenly changes. He leaped into the air and grabbed at the air in the direction of the window. In the next moment, a figure was pulled out from behind the window lattice in a sorry state and fell to the ground with his neck in his hands. "Wen Qingyuan." Mu Yan said slowly, "You're quite courageous to actually dare to follow me." Wen Qingyuan's gaze was fixed on her. There was shock, astonishment, disbelief, and unconcealable fear in his eyes. He was in a daze for a long time before he murmured, "You actually came out from the uncleansed abyss. Jun Shiyuan, what's your relationship with him?" You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.